The cross was given the name of the skill bestowed upon it. It was Gacha. The hero was in Rasil, the main capital of Rakind. His father told the boy that the skill bestowed upon him was beautiful. He thanked. Cross Backhurst. This is the 5th son of the Count. In this country, when a person turns 15, an appraisal ritual is performed in which the god bestows a skill upon the person. Looking into the future in God's dream, the hero's family almost had their jaw drop when he told them this. His father told him to look and that he could already see the church. Cross thought it was the first time he had ever seen his father so happy. After the hero was born, his mother died. His life cost his mother's life, so his family hated him, considering him a symbol of evil. A common sinner who could be isolated at any time, but even so, he lived well enough. Someone wished Cross a good morning. He was startled. He saw Ellis. It was the daughter of the Earl of Ryfield. The hero said that he heard that she was not feeling well today. The girl replied that it was such an important day for her soulmate and she couldn't help but attend. She asked if she was interrupting him. The one replied that of course not. He thought about the fact that he was only alive because of such a useful political means as his wedding. Cross thought that Ellis was a lovely girl, good looking at first sight, but in fact she was sadistic and he had been horribly bullied since he was a child. Ellis asked if it wasn't useful to have a good skill like his. The hero thought it was such a strong killing intent. He was sure she was tired, and there was a reason she stopped bullying him because of the Gacha skill. He thought that the bullying might intensify if he started using the skill, but he couldn't be scared forever. Cross thanked Ellis and said that he hoped this skill would be useful to her. The girl blushed. She turned around and said they would see each other again. He thought that was unusual, and she didn't get angry. The man told him that it was time for them to go. The hero agreed. He thought about the fact that these horrible days that he had to endure would end today. He thought that with his new Gacha skill, his new life would begin here. He was told that from now on they would present the Backhurst evaluation ceremony. He was told to place his hand on the stone monument. Cross agreed to do so. He reached forward and laid his hand on the monument, which shone. A Gacha appeared on the screen. People discussed that want rumors that he could accumulate skills indefinitely, and in truth, the Gacha fell out. His father told the hero to show him the Gacha right away. He agreed. He stretched his hand forward. A screen appeared in front of him. He wondered why the screen was so bright and wondered how to share the screen. Cross thought that apparently only he could see this Gacha screen. He turned to everyone. He shouted that he now had the Gacha screen in front of him and he could spin the Gacha. He thought that finally his new life was about to begin. Cross noticed something strange. People were whispering. He realized that the Gacha was not spinning. The hero was scared. The screen said he didn't have enough points. He was shocked. He thought, what other glasses? Why isn't it spinning? And he could spin it in his sleep, right? Cross wondered how to even get them then. His father asked him if he had gotten his skill and asked him to show them soon. The hero replied that it seemed that, right now, he couldn't use it. The father's face changed and he asked him again what he had said. The brothers turned to the cross. One of them asked if he was really trying to deceive them. The one answered fearfully. The hero said that he had really seen it in God's dream. He was asked why then he was not spinning. The one replied that he did not have enough glasses to spin the Gacha. The brother interrogated and said to go and earn some. Cross began to look for information. He didn't understand why they didn't write anywhere how to earn them and why they didn't tell him in his dream. He was very nervous and swearing. The father said what a shame the cross had brought them. The son looked at him with tears in his eyes. He turned to him. The father asked if killing his own mother was not enough for him and said that he was now besmirching the name of the Backhursts. The hero said that it was not like that. His father called him a freak and told him to shut up. He said he was a disgrace to the Backhurst family and this time he would definitely not forgive him. He cried out that the cross was banished. The hero wondered if there was nothing he could change. The wagon was traveling down the road. Cross was being carried in it. The boys were discussing how dumb he really was. One of them asked if he was serious about trying to outwit his brothers by making up such a big lie. Another said that if only he had listened to him, he would be living in an upscale house somewhere. The hero asked to be given a sword. He said that if he went unarmed, he would surely be killed by some monster. The guy refused, adding that they were ordered to treat him as a sinner, which he was. Cross said the original reason for sending sinners to the lower world was to subdue demons. He said he would kill as many monsters as he could to recover, that he wanted to make the upper world a safe place where people could live for a long time. He asked again. The guy gave him a sword and told him to take it. Cross thanked. The drawing on the floor lit up and the hero disappeared. One of the guys asked if he was gone. Another replied that apparently they would never see his face again. The forest was dark. A pillar of light appeared in the middle of it. A cross appeared at the edge of the forest. He looked around and said that this was the lower world. He thought of the monsters living in the lower world. In the upper world, live people connected by a single magic circle through an indestructible gate. They are so unique in the world. Transporting magic circles are used to send criminal offenders to the lower world. They are sent to random places, so it is impossible to return. Cross was wondering what he should do now. Suddenly, glowing eyes appeared in the bushes. Cross turned around and was very scared. He saw that it was a wolf. He said that he should have shown up so early. Wolves are bigger and fiercer than ordinary wolves. They are not afraid to attack even armed men. Cross drew his sword as the monster approached. The hero thought about the fact that he was top of the class in the Knight Academy. He had even fought a monster once. He knew that the monsters of the upper world were weaker than the monsters here, and most likely his swordsmanship would end here. Wolf ran at him. Cross lifted his foot and kicked him in the face, swinging his sword. The monster bounced back a little. The hero with a shout struck with his weapon. He slashed its muzzle, but the beast didn't even flinch. The hero thought that in the lower world, fighting is a natural instinct. Wolf had already opened his mouth right in front of Cross. The one began to twist his sword. He struck a blow that pierced through the beast's muzzle. Blood spurted. The monster was defeated. The hero stood beside its corpse. He thought about the fact that he had to move a lot more than he expected, and that the sword was good too, and worth this uncomfortable petition. Cross looked at the body of the wolf. He decided that he would just drain the blood for now. He said that he heard monster meat was very tasty. The hero noticed something. The inscription 100p appeared above the body. He thought about the fact that when you kill a monster in the upper world, there was no such thing. He didn't know what kind of are. Cross abruptly remembered. He walked into the gacha and thought that this could not happen. He shouted that they were here, 100 points. The hero realized that points could be obtained by killing monsters. He realized that this meant that his failed skill was only useless in the upper world where there were no monsters. He got angry and shouted what the hell. He yelled that at least they would say that this skill was hard to use in the upper world, and then maybe he would still come to the lower world, but it would be better with special equipment and handling. Cross lay down on the grass, spreading his legs and arms. He said that maybe it was for the best. He thought about the fact that it was too late, that he didn't want to accept anything from these people. The hero thought that he had gone through so many miserable events and humiliation to have what he had, and he would be very angry if he didn't get the skills. He said that, and still, will make the gacha work and only need to find more monster. Cross said that he had been learning how to survive, but he finally had hope. He smiled. He realized that he would survive here, that he would not die. At this time in the upper world, there was a beautiful house, a room. On the bed lay a sad Ellis, hugging a pillow with the image of the cross. Cross was asked by someone if he was really that dumb. Toth looked up and saw that it was Ellis. She said to think he was trying to elevate his position with a retarded god dream. He looked at her. The girl asked if he would say something. The hero asked if it wasn't wonderful that she had to break off her engagement to such an idiot. Thea replied that she couldn't say that she liked this attitude of his, but still, she was doing her best to save him from here. He asked what she meant by that. Ellis said she meant what she said. She said he is her dog, her toy, her slave, so she can't just leave him like that. Cross asked if that was so, then what, and how she would help him. The girl sat down on a chair and took off her shoe, bringing her foot up to his face. She told him to lick it and show his devotion. She said she would then return their engagement, and when they were married, get the hell out of here. The girl said there would have to be a ceremony, and also, she would destroy the Reifeld family especially for him. She told him to prove his loyalty. Cross put his tongue up to her leg, but sharply pushed it away. Ellis was indignant. He asked if she should go with her toy and her back, and to hell with obedience. He yelled that he was not her slave. She was shocked. The girl yelled that if he was sent to the lower world, he would definitely die. The hero asked if she was done, which she deigned to take off. He said that he had already made up his mind. The girl got angry. She left the room and said that he had better remember that, and let him just try to come, afterward, to him with tears. After that, Cross got sick and had to go home to rest. Later, Alice went to the maid. The maid asked her who it was. The girl replied that everything should be perfectly fine. She said that she was going to see Cross again tomorrow and asked her to get her things ready. The maid replied that regarding that, she did not feel like talking, but there was something. She said that Cross had already been sent to the lower world. Ellis was surprised. She shouted in shock to the whole palace. The hero was in the lower world. He skillfully launched a sword attack. The body of the wolf lay on the ground. Cross said that this was the second kill. He said he was getting sticky with sweat. He realized that there was a large gathering of wolves in this place, and his Gacha ability was a super rare ability that allowed him to have unlimited skills. He thought about the fact that in order to smoke Gacha, he has to defeat monsters and collect points from them. He thought that one wolf gives 100 points, and he needs 500 points to use Gacha, so he needs at least 5 wolves. To start with, Cross thought of spinning the Gacha at once. Once the right number of points were accumulated, if the wolves were caught singly and without any problems, he could safely collect a lot of points. That's why he was aiming for 5,000 points. He would be able to spin some cool Gacha. The hero thought about that light body. He heard that this skill depends on the strength of the body itself. It looks like he is drifting above the ground, as if aiming for his goal and hope. He said that he had already made 37 kills and the conquest was complete. He said that everything is going to go to the point where he will quietly collect 5,000 while the sun will still light the way. Cross decided to see how many points he had. He opened the screen with a smile. Suddenly, something startled him. There were 25 points in the balance. He realized that it was not increasing. Cross didn't understand why it was so low and where all the points had gone. He tried to come to his senses. The hero told himself to calm down and that he was sure there was a reason. He pondered what the problem was with his hunt, and whether it could be that each creature had a different number of points. The hero looked closely at the body of the wolf. He saw that it looked like the interface was no longer showing points. Cross suggested that maybe he had been hunting too much. He said he was sure he should have looked at the point count earlier. There was a beautiful view of the mountains, and the sun was about to set. Cross had killed the monster. The number 100 appeared above him. The hero looked exhausted. He said that someday, in the sunlight, he would earn 5,000 points. After all that, he changed his goblin hunting location. Then he hunted fang rabbits. He thought that goblins were very easy to kill, very weak, and on the other side were fang rabbits. He realized that they have an attack like a small wolf, but they are very fast, hard to hit them with a sword. The hero said that ever since he was sent to the lower world, all he has done is fight monsters, and he imagines how quickly he would have died if it wasn't for his skill. He entered the Gacha screen again. There were 5,000 points in the balance. Cross was so happy that he almost cried. He said that it was the end, really, and we should see what was there. He thought that the 3 points of poo were probably healing, appraisal, cultivation, and undoubtedly, all these skills were very rare and needed high levels. The hero thought about the fact that usually one only got 1 skill at the evaluation ceremony, but he could get all 3 skills. He looked satisfied. He wondered what he should do, spin around here or hide somewhere safe. Cross looked at the button. He decided he wasn't going to wait any longer and pressed it. From above, something flew at him. A chest appeared right in front of the hero. He jumped back frightened. Opening his eyes, he took a closer look. Cross realized that it was the treasure in the chest. It was written above it that it must be touched. The hero thought to touch the inscription and did so. The latch of the chest worked. It opened and glowed. Glowing orbs flew upward from it. They all hovered in the air in front of the hero. He counted the orbs and said that together there were 11 of them. He asked if these were all skills. Cross said it looked like there were different variations of orbs, and here was this copper-colored orb. He put his hand up to it. The ball glowed. The hero was impressed. He was surprised when he opened his eyes. The orbs became transparent and the orbs displayed abilities. Cross realized that it was one of those copper orbs and it was all abilities. He said that, or it was more of a change in abilities and he couldn't understand just because of that. He said he didn't know how to continue them on top of the silver ball. The hero saw that there were more tempting abilities here, but he didn't know how to check if sword wielding only worked on one-handed swords or not. The next one was a golden orb. He saw that these were magic skills and said that with this kind of magic, survival was a matter of spitting. Cross said finally a rainbow orb. He tensed up, thinking about the fact that no 3-point skill had dropped out yet, and touched the orb. The orb began to glow and a level 1 score appeared on it. Cross was very excited. He shouted that it was awesome, and now he was going to try it. He thought that he didn't want to lose any more skills. The hero said that he kind of had to visualize the name of the skillet in his head. He closed his eyes and concentrated on evaluating. When he opened his eyes, he was surprised. In front of him was a data update sign. Marks appeared everywhere around. Cross was puzzled, not realizing what it was. The tags were on flowers, rocks, lizards. The hero marveled at how cool this was, and thought that meant he could appreciate it all. He picked up a peach and went into the tag. The peach's details opened up, but some opened up at 2 or 3 levels. Cross said that it was understandable. As the level increased, the number of items that could be determined would increase, but he was glad that at the first level he could determine the poisonousness. He looked down. The mark on his arm began to load. A panel appeared in front of the hero. On it was information about him. He thought that this was his status. It said that the available skills were 9. Tears came to Cross's eyes. He clutched his stomach. He said he was so hungry that even the tears were coming. The night came. The hero said that at first level he could only do this kind of thing, and held his finger, from which the light came up to the branch. It caught fire. A fire was kindled, on which Cross roasted food he began to eat. The hero was very happy. He shouted how delicious it was. There was a monster's hide lying on the ground. Cross said he thought it would survive the cold. He lay between the skins and said that there was so much to do tomorrow, and it seems that gacha points were needed for monster hunting. He wanted to improve the base and the doctor's skill if he had the chance. The hero fell asleep. He had a dream. Someone said his name. It was Ellis. She said she thought if it wasn't for her, no one would take a scum like you. She said he should obey her orders, and if he didn't understand, let him answer. He heard his name many times. Cross saw her huge eyes and between them his name. The hero woke up in a sweat and with a loud scream. He calmed down, realizing that it was a dream. The hero did not understand why he was having such dreams when he had finally escaped from it. He went back to sleep, but he remembered the aristocrat's school uniform. He remembered Ellis. Cross thought that it seemed like since that time Ellis's true identity had been revealed. Ellis thought about how beautiful she was. She remembered someone saying that Ellis was like an angel reborn. She didn't like that. She thought it was because she was 100 times more beautiful than some angel. When Cross and Ellis were little, Cross told the girl that she had better not mess with him. He said he was the devil's child. The girl thought about the fact that this was their first encounter with Cross. She thought that Cross was the first person who paid no attention to her. She said, "Oh well." She said that Cross Barist was looking at her and that he was sure to be crazy about her. So from the next day, she started going to see him. She said that they were having a supreme ride today. He replied that there was no horse here. Suddenly, a paddle appeared. She, sitting on him, beat him and shouted to be faster, forward, so that he would start already to roar like a horse. She thought that Cross was accepting her and her true nature, and she unconsciously became attached to him. But there was another side to it. People were saying that Mrs. Ellis was so noble that she was visiting this mediocrity on purpose. She asked whom they meant. She was answered that of course Cross. The man laughed. Ellis thought that they don't even notice his charm and make fools of themselves. They themselves are mediocrities. She was offended and wondered if there was any way to put these rascals in their place. An idea came to her. She asked her father to listen and whispered something in his ear. He replied that it was understandable and would be done right away. He turned to the ladies and gentlemen and asked for attention. He said that his daughter Ellis wanted to make an announcement. She said that she, Ellis Leaford, is betrothed to Cross Backhurst. All the people were shocked, including Cross. And after that, they started going to an aristocrat school. Because of their different faculties, they couldn't see each other often. Rumors about Cross's skills reached her faculty as well. She was proud of it. The girls discussed that Cross from the Knight's faculty was so cute, but it seems he was already dating someone, and they wondered who. They saw Cross waving at Ellis, and they had a guess. Ellis told them that yes, she and Cross were already engaged. The girls were shocked. She wondered why she told them then. Cross appeared in front of Ellis with a box of presents. She gave him a serious look. The girl asked what he had in there. He replied that they were presents. Cross suddenly became popular with the girls. Ellis thought that it seems that for them, the love story of a beautiful lady and a handsome man is the best entertainment, and Cross, who acts like a real duke, they like it very much. The girl told him that she sees he has become very popular. She told him not to forget one thing, that she is his bride. The hero replied that of course. The girl smiled. Ellis recalled that in the beginning she was jealous just a little bit, but as the days went by she stopped thinking. She told him not to talk to the opposite sex besides her, that she had specifically designated him as her fiancé. She screamed that he was worthless without her. Ellis thought about the fact that the flame of her jealousy burned furiously and it drove Cross away. In addition, she ruined his reputation at school. Cross lost his confidence and shut down. She thought her goal was to keep him away from others, but really she was devaluing him and was obsessed with how he looked. She interrogated the maid about what she had said. The maid said that it seems he will get a very unusual gacha skill, and indeed, Cross is a worthy Ellis groom. The girl replied that she was thinking she should already be preparing a speech for the performance. She was thinking about the fact that if things continued like this, she and Cross would be separated. She was very worried about that. The day of the ritual came. The girl heard that he was banished. She was very happy, thinking that Cross had cornered himself. Ellis thought of the fact that after the disgrace that would stain the Backhurst family for eternity to come, their engagement would surely be broken off. And when she reached out to the desperate Cross, his life would be hers. It was going to happen that way. Standing in front of the window, she said she was wrong. Ellis thought that if he had been just a little more obedient, it wouldn't have happened that they would never meet again. She didn't understand why, but before she could finish speaking, she covered her face with her hands. She cried, standing in front of the window. A maid called her from behind the door and apologized for disturbing her rest. Ellis shouted for her not to open the door. The maid said she understood. The girl asked what was needed. The maid replied that the head of the family had just asked for a message. Ellis asked about her father. The maid said she was asked to prepare for King Rakine's audience. Ellis wondered. Cross at this time cried out in surprise. He said that indeed the fruit was growing. He happily took a bite of a peach. The hero said it tasted sweet and juicy, and all fatigue was blown away. He thought about the fact that this almond tree was twice the size of a normal tree, and in only 5 days had become fruitful. 5 days ago, he had prepared 25 slave arrows. He rejoiced that he now had 11 gacha skills. The sun shone brightly. Cross now had 2 rainbow skills. He said that a lot of new skills had appeared, the grade had gone down, but the level was still going up. He had the rainbow cultivation skill, which could shorten the time and enhance some quality of the object being cultivated, such as flavor, strengthening, weakening, and so on. Cross used cultivation. It was said that if one were to grow a fruit-bearing almond tree, the approximate time was 5 days. The hero was very surprised to see a fruit-bearing tree in 5 days. He said that the rainbow skills were even cheatier than he thought. He said that in those 5 days he focused on learning skills and finally gacha. He defeated Skeleton and Fae. Cross told the new skills that he was asking them to come by pressing a button. Balls of different skills scattered. The hero jumped up with a shout of happiness. He shouted that there was healing, and here he had gotten the long-awaited skill. He said that with this skill, he could make a potion. The skill description said that it allowed him to make a potion from medicinal herbs and ingredients. Cross was surprised. He said that's how it is. It needs ingredients that 5 days he searched, but there aren't many medicinal herbs here. The hero said that although it dispelled the worry about injuries and illnesses, he decided that after lunch he would look for a place where there were many medicinal herbs. There was a blow. A piece of the sword sank into the ground, at which a surprised Cross looked on. He said that the sword had broken. At this time, he was fighting a fanged bull that had a health of 150 out of 1,000. The hero shouted that it was a curse, and because there was still a little bit left. In his hands was the hilt of a bronze sword that had a health of 0 out of 200 and was impossible to use. Cross thought while running away from the bull that originally the sword's durability was low, and apparently now was the limit, and against such a monster once at 0 went down. He thought that he couldn't use magic yet, and fishing and cultivation were useless. The bull was approaching. The hero realized that there would be hand-to-hand combat. He slammed his fist with all his might into the face of the bull running at him. The monster stood up on its hind hooves from the blow. As a result, he toppled over backwards. He was dead. Cross said that the bull wasn't far from the first level of strength, and he didn't expect such a strong opponent to come out. He looked closely at the number of points and saw the number 200. The hero was very surprised. He said that he usually got no higher than 100 and assumed that the stronger the opponent, the more points would come out of it. He said that martial arts, even at first level, had amazing power. What he meant was that a few seconds after using this skill, his hands would become weak. He saw blood flowing from his hand. Cross was startled. He screamed without realizing what it was. His arm kept changing, swelling. He screamed loudly and asked what it was. Tears appeared in the hero's eyes. He triggered the pharmacist's skill. His hand was between two white pillars. He said to take the Shio herb and put it into the magic purified water. He did so and began applying it to the injured area. The water doused his arm. Cross cried out in pain. He shouted loudly throughout the forest. The hero lay on the grass. He looked at his arm in its usual state and said that it hardly hurt at all and that the rainbow skills were incredible. There was a sword hilt lying on the ground. Cross picked it up. He said that, however, it seemed that both martial arts and pharmaceuticals were not of a high enough level to be used, and one still needed to take care of the sword. The hero used the blacksmith skill. You need to put the handle of the broken sword as well as the cow's fang on the board. Juga the cow tusk sword was ready. The attack power was 70 and the endurance value was 200. Cross said it would be completed in the shortest time possible, maximum strength. He thought the sword was good, but in battle he learned that the weapon was not enough. The hero decided that after everything, he should find allies. He thought that to turn gacha he must defeat new monsters, and if such a strong opponent appeared in the future, entering the battle alone would be too risky. He thought that if there were friends, one could take turns guarding while one of them went to bed. Also, in battle, tactics are born. Cross thought that when he lived in the upper world, there were ruthless kidnappings, and if there were several in one place, they would team up and use a spell. He said that he would try to find any traces, and that humanity was incredibly sinful, a savage race. He thought about how it was hard to make friends, that generations change, things change, and he thought that at least someone would be able to help him. Suddenly, the hero noticed something. He saw a person in armor and thought that maybe it was a chance, but he didn't know how to make it. The girl said hello to Cross and said she couldn't believe it when he was ridiculed in the high world. She asked if it was not the way the stories were told. She said that no matter what land, they were the same friends, that he was the only friend, and as expected, she had no doubt. Cross said she was the one to them he did not expect. The girl took off her helmet. She said that meeting him is more interesting than doing simulated sword fighting in the night department, but with him, it is a hard fight every time. Cross found out that she was secretly training with Ellis, just the two of them. He said that actually by application to her, the sword technique he had learned was quite effective. He said it would be interesting to see them fight. Recifal Castle was shrouded in clouds. It was raining. Ellis yelled out asking what they were doing here and why the girl had called her. She asked to be told. The girl asked why Ellis was here and said the king had called her. She asked if she was too. That girl was Minu Sicilian. She was the illegitimate child of one of the 3 clans with the title of Archduke in the Rakind Kingdom of the Sicilian clan. On the day of the evaluation ritual, this girl had commandeered an extremely rare skill. Ellis thought about the fact that she studied with Cross in the same chivalry course, always found a common topic of conversation with him and would discuss it passionately, spends more time with Cross in the academy than herself. She thought that Minu had bigger breasts than her, and was the girl she hated more than anyone else. Someone addressed the girls. It was the older brothers from the Backhurst family. One said that Mrs. Ellis had also been called over, and the other asked who it was that they had here, whether Minu was cute. They said that today, Mrs. Ellis is as charming as anything, and Minu, the cutie, recently met a monster in the city and immediately killed it. That this is a noble achievement. The girls thanked. One of the brothers asked if the commoners should be protected at all. Another turned to Ellis and asked if he, so peerless, was suitable to be her fiancé, adding that all the more so since that talentless Cross was gone. Another told Min that an audience with the king was a bore to death and suggested that we run away from here, go out and have some fun. Ellis apologized and said that someone like him wouldn't be a suitable replacement for Cross. The boy was surprised. She said she would ask that henceforth he would not utter delusional maxims about how he was supposedly more magnificent than Cross. Minu said that her power was meant to protect all the people. Commoner or aristocrat didn't matter to her, but if they were in danger, perhaps she would change her beliefs. The boys were shocked. The girls said goodbye to him. The audience was beginning. The king sat on the throne. It was the owner of Recifal Castle, the king of the country of Rakind, Recifal VII. He addressed the gentlemen, representatives of the 3 families of archdukes. He apologized for having summoned them so unexpectedly. Father Cross asked what the man was talking about. He said that to His Majesty, the representatives of the Backhurst family would always rush to His Majesty instantly at a call. He also said about that monster that suddenly appeared the other day. Minu's father said that they, the Sicilian family, had dealt with it and asked if the king would have any comments. The latter replied that he had not, and that they had done everything perfectly. He said that he wanted to give details of the letter he had received from the Pope. A girl came out to him. People said she was the head of the knight's troop, and she was as delightful as ever. The one unfolded the paper. She said that it was written about the recent appearance of a mysterious monster striking fear into the parish town, that the writer had been privy to the contents of a divine dream and expounded on it below. She said that maybe they would talk about more down-to-earth things instead of divine speeches, that there had been an increasing number of days lately when huge numbers of monsters had swooped in. The people were frightened. They talked about the large number of monsters and that their country was in trouble. The girls said that there was no need to worry though, that the gods had already figured out how to counter the monster attacks, and they would grant special skills for that purpose. She said that below were the 3 people who would possess those skills. She started with the first one. The head of the night squad said that it was the skill intercession of the providence of the Holy Maiden, and the possessor was Ellis Riefeld. The latter was very surprised. Her father said that she was a good girl. Ellis thanked him. She thought that indeed, her skill was too powerful in effect for the peaceful upper world. She thought about the fact that here it suddenly turns out to be an extremely rare skill used against monsters, and that today, from this very day, the heroic tale of her would begin. The head of the night squad said about the second person. She said that it was the skill of a brave man's strike, and its possessor was Minu Sicilian. Ellis, gritting her teeth, said that wench again. She thought about the fact that she had the rear support category skill, and if all the nasty dirty monsters were entrusted to a wench with cow udders, it would completely triple her. That if one worked in close proximity to commoners and soldiers, a sharp increase in sympathy was imminent. She thought of Minu's life ending on the battlefield where she would be brutally killed. The head of the night squad said about the last third person. The brothers of the cross thought it was them. The girl looking at the letter was surprised. She said it was the ability of the Gacha. Upon hearing this, Ellis, Minu, and the Cross brothers were shocked. She said that Cross Backhurst's skill holder. His father was confused. The king said that these 3 skills had become a topic of discussion many times before, that it wasn't special skills against monsters and so on, considering that they were endowed on the members of all the ducal families. He said that in addition, according to the Pope's suggestion, it seems that in the future there will be holders of skills used against monsters. He said that therefore there was nothing to fear from monster attacks, and that they would ensure the safety of their Rakind country, then laughed. Ellis was tense. She thought about the fact that the king was smiling, and from the looks of it, he didn't know where the cross was yet. She thought that it would mean that she and Minu would have to deal with the monsters, and that the Backhurst family had made a mess of things. The king asked what they had said about the Backhurst family, and about their 5th son, Cross. He asked where Cross was and what was wrong with him. Cross's father twitched with fear. The king asked if Cross of the Backhurst family had the skill of Gacha. The father hesitated and said that in general, Cross has a little bit of health. He was interrupted by Father Ellis, turning to the king. He said that Cross Backhurst could in no way appear here. The king replied to Duke Riefeld. He asked what the latter meant. Father Ellis said he thought it best to hear about it firsthand, namely from the head of the family. The boy's father, stammering, said that Cross had committed a misdemeanor and was exiled to the lower world. The king, in shock, interrogated what he had said. He shouted that Cross had, so to speak, earned the special favor of the gods and asked what he was doing. Backhurst replied that he had committed a very serious misdemeanor, and so. The king asked what such a transgression. It must be that a 15-year-old should be banished to the lower world on it. The father of the Cross pondered. Someone stepped forward and said that Cross had committed no misdemeanor. It was Minu. She said that during the evaluation ritual, Duke Backhurst had decided that Cross was lying because he had failed to demonstrate his skill and had exiled Cross to the lower world. The king asked how anyone could do such a foolish thing. Cross's father called Mina a trashy girl. He shouted that she had intruded into someone else's conversation and had the nerve to tell tall tales here. Father Ellis said that almost everyone here was on the scene and asked if that was true. He asked, furthermore, doesn't the letter he recently read confirm that everything Cross said was true? He turned to Duke Backhurst and asked if it was true that the reason for everything was that he did not believe his own son. The latter shouted that it was nothing of the sort. Ellis thought that was just as well. Ellis's father appealed to His Majesty. He said that before the country was in a critical situation, he dared to make his guesses about how difficult it was. He said that the people of Riefeld, would go in search of the cross and find it to relieve His Majesty of his anxiety. The king replied that it sounded encouraging. Fr. Ellis asked permission to give advice. The king asked what kind, after which he said he would allow it, and that he should speak. Thoth asked if they brought Cross back. Could His Majesty appoint him head of the Backhurst family? Cross's father cried out in shock. He asked if Duke Riefeld was making a mockery of him, and if he wanted to wrangle the right to inherit the title to Cross's 5th son. The latter replied that that was why he wanted to consult His Majesty, and besides, it must be done. Otherwise it would be difficult to get Cross back. The king asked what he meant by this. Father Ellis said that Cross had been unjustly labeled a liar, treated like a criminal, exiled to the lower world, that his family had treated him so cruelly, and if they were to give him the slip here too, there was a chance that he would want to take revenge on the country. He said that therefore, by inheriting his title, elevating his position, relative to the other members of the Backhurst family who had devised an unjust punishment for him, they would give Cross the opportunity to bury the hatchet himself. Cross's father cried out to His Majesty. He begged, he pleaded, he begged them to forgive him. The king asked if the purpose of his life was to defend the country, or if he was wrong. He said that since he had been offered the return of Cross with the condition of giving him the title, he intended to fulfill that condition. Duke Backhurst was depressed. Ellis thought that was understandable. She thought about the fact that using her relationship with Cross as an excuse, her father was going to take over the power of the 2 ducal families. She thought that if he succeeded, he would become more powerful than the king, and perhaps in the near future, the Riefeld family would even want the royal throne. She thought that this is, after all, the story of how she and Cross will build their beautiful relationship. Ellis raised her head. She decided that it didn't matter what her father was up to, because through this, she might get to see Cross again. She thought that if she met him, She should apologize for everything that had happened. In the lower world, Cross saw the golden skill of empowering magic and thought that it was probably a technique for giving weapons and defenses additional properties. The hero decided that he would test it right away and used empowering magic. He had a bullfang sword, a potentially empowering ability, an ability of only one kind. The hero thought that both abilities interested him, but only one should be chosen. He decided that he would take the chopping blow skill after all, and from the looks of it, it was something cool. He pressed the button confirming that the bullfang sword had been endowed with the chopping skill. Cross turned his attention to the smell. He looked beyond the trees. As he got closer, he was surprised. He said it was the sea, standing on the sandy shore. He heard the splashing of the waves. Cross said that the sea here is exactly the same as in the upper world, and the distance is wrapped in mist. He thought of the world being shrouded in fog. This is the common opinion of mankind, and no one knows what is on the other side of the fog. He thought about how many times they had organized explorations and all had failed. The ships never returned. Gradually, everyone stopped even thinking about getting to the other side of the fog. He noticed something. Cross saw the dock. The water was splashing. The hero walked up to the pier. He thought about the fact that the boats were gone, that the people who fished here for a living had moved on to other places, or something had happened and they couldn't come back. He said it didn't matter what the reason was and used the art of fishing by casting a rod. The hero said that it was only meat and fruit all the time, but sometimes one wanted to eat seafood as well. He shouted that at once it bit, and it was something big. Cross pulled hard on the fishing rod, and a huge monster with a spear in his hands appeared out of the water. The hero was shocked. He realized that it was a Sahajin. The monster screamed as it prepared to attack. It struck with its spear, but the hero managed to dodge. He drew his sword. Cross was frustrated. He thought about the Sahajin's spear and blocking the way out to the pier. How frivolous, and you can't get any closer on such a narrow bridge. He decided that here was just the right time to try it out, whereupon he used the sword's endowment of magic. He used the skill of a chopping blow. The monster was chopped. Cross was in a leap and Sahajin was falling backwards. The cross struck another blow. Blood was pouring out of the monster. The hero saw the 200 points and thought that when he leveled up, he would be able to kill with one blow. He said that with the second level of the art of fishing, he would be able to catch something decent. He turned his attention to the water. The heads of monsters were showing from it. He shouted that there was a horde of Sahajinas here. He, looking at their characteristics, said that he then thought that he would finally get seafood. Cross saw that they were poison-free and edible. He thought that even though it said it was edible, he didn't want it. Later, he fished some more, but he never caught any fish, only saved points. There was whispering everywhere. There was a teddy bear sitting on a chair. The king told Duke Refeld that he was entrusting him with the search for the cross. He said that his majesty could rely on him. Someone turned to the king. It was the current head of the Sicilian family, Father Minu. He said that they too would help in the search for the cross. The king asked if the Sicilian family would also join in. The one answered in the affirmative and added something. He said that, moreover, they would even involve their brave Mina in the search. The girl's heart beat faster. The king and Ellis's father looked at him. People asked to wait and asked who would defend this country then. Everyone whispered. Minu's father said that her skill of striking a brave man is the same invincible power. The king said that if a large number of monsters invaded them with an attack in their absence. The man replied that after all, Cross is in the lower world and has been in a far more dangerous position than them all this time. He said that there was not a moment to lose in such a situation and asked if it wasn't obvious whether it was obvious what should be prioritized. The king agreed and said that there was some truth in this. He asked Minu if she agreed. The girl answered in the affirmative and asked that it be entrusted to her. The king relented. He said that it was good that he was relying on her and that then everyone was free. Someone asked if she too might be allowed to join the search. It was Ellis. She said that she was Ellis Refeld. She too had gotten the skill and her body had gained incredible power. She said that on top of that, she was engaged to Cross and asked if it was true that there was no better candidate. The king replied that indeed, one could not argue with that. The girl thought of what was true. She was now his former fiancée. Minu turned to His Majesty. She said that it was not a good idea. Kroll was surprised. The girl said that Cross had always told her. She said he had said that Ellis had morally cornered him with her insolent and rude behavior. Ellis was shocked. She screamed. Minu said that if Cross confronted her unexpectedly, he would probably run away in fear, in which case it would be even more difficult to get him back. Ellis whirled around her and yelled for her to wait, asking what she was weaving, telling her to watch what she said. Minu said that moreover, in the worst-case scenario, he could take his own life. Ellis screamed in anger and covered Minu's mouth with words to shut up already. The king was watching this. He asked Ellis if what Minu said was true. Ellis had an idea. She began to justify herself. Minu thought about the fact that he had said it to her in a private conversation was certainly a lie, but it was suspicious. Ellis said that the fact that she was sometimes rude in her interactions with Cross was a fact. The king was dumbfounded. She said that there was a reason for that although she was engaged to Cross, this Minu was constantly making eyes at him. The king said that yes, how dare she. The one said that it was not true, and she always interacted with him only as a friend. She said that since it already seemed like that to Ellis, it would be enough to discuss it with her in person, and she was besides constantly pouncing on Cross and taking out her anger on him. Ellis asked if she hadn't paid enough attention to her. She said that Minu wouldn't listen to her either, so she had to talk to Cross. Minu said that Ellis never said anything like that to her. The latter said that was not true, and she had clearly and explicitly told her. They continued to argue about whether or not Ellis had spoken. The king became angry. The atmosphere between the girls was too tense. The king shouted that let them have enough. He shouted that it didn't matter which one of them did it, and asked that they just bring Cross back as soon as possible. Minu asked how Ellis was going to get Cross back. The latter thought Minu was an obsessive wench. She said she would talk him into it, and that her father had already prepared an excellent present for him. Minu asked if she meant that Cross would be granted a title upon his return. Ellis said it was a great idea of her father's to ask to make Cross the head of the family. Minu agreed. She said that Ellis didn't know anything about Cross. She said that what Cross always wants is freedom. Ellis shouted how pesky she was, and that he would become a duke and dispose of the house and money as he wished. The girl replied that Cross would not be happy about such a thing. She said that no matter what she said next, it would be of no use. Ellis became angry and asked her again what she had said. Minu told her see you later and turned around. She shouted at her to wait. She was puzzled. She wondered what this freedom represented. At this time in the lower world, Cross was upset. He said that today was the 30th of April, and April was the deadline, so today was the last day of the Gacha skill. He said that he had spun the Gacha wheel 11 times daily, had obtained more than one rainbow skill, and that was a real lot. He thought about the fact that rainbow skills have a maximum level of 3. Besides, it is mandatory to extract 4 identical skills. He said that since he had come all this way, let cultivation and cultivation fall out. The hero activated the skill orbs. It was indeed cultivation and cultivation. Cross was overjoyed. He was jumping with happiness and shouted that it was great that he now had all the rainbow skills of the maximum level. The hero continued to rejoice. He walked into the cave and wondered if he was going to part with this cave today. He thought that he wouldn't be bored at all. Cross looked at the skill. He said that he had gotten the silver skill construction by twisting the gacha yesterday. He said joyfully that now he would finally fulfill his cherished wish, namely to build his own house. Cross had already even chosen the place where he would build. There were logs and a hill of sand in front of him. The hero said he would build on a small elevation with a beautiful view, a river nearby, fish could be harvested there, and easy access to areas whose exploration had not yet progressed. He decided to proceed and used the construction. He had many blueprints and schematics in front of him. He said it was the first level, so the design and size of the house would be modest, but he was going to live alone anyway, so it didn't matter. He said that the materials used in the construction are delivered in advance, so you get to choose some of them, and similarly, the desired room layout is chosen ahead of time, and that's great. Cross said that he had made up his mind and let it be such a house, poking at the blueprint. The house appeared in front of him. The hero was amazed. He said that could it be so instantaneous? He put his hand on the wall and said that the walls were strong and he thought they would protect him from the attacks of the simpler monsters. Cross opened the door and decided to go in. He was pleased and said that the inside of the house was also well made. He saw that the curtains were made of monster's fur and the window glass was made of coastal sand. The hero saw the kitchen stove and said he had always wanted one like that. He said that if you use the cooking skill, food cooks instantly, but tastes worse than hand-cooked food. Cross thought that since there was nothing else to do here besides researching and earning points, he had gotten into cooking. And by the way, he had never even tried cooking outside the lower world. He was pleasantly shocked without realizing what it was. He realized that he now had a bed of winged sheep's wool, and didn't realize if it wasn't warmer than the one he had at his parents' house. He looked at the calendar. It was April 4. The hero jumped up and opened the gacha screen. He stared at it. Cross thought the choice of gacha, this is where it all began. He decided that before the next month came, he would check his stats one more time. Strength was 130, stamina 123, dexterity 102, intelligence 124, magic ability 155. He said that by this time, he had gained 50,000 points. 40,000 of them he had used. The number of gacha rotations was 88 times. He thought that there were still 10,000 points left, but that was okay. He noticed something else. Cross said what was the number of available skills he had, banished because of the loser skill of the gacha. There were 30 of them. The hero looked over his skills. He asked himself how it was that he had suddenly lost his sense of reality. Cross said that this was how he had built a beautiful house and could no longer imagine life without skills. Lying on his bed, he thought that probably when there is no emotional connection to anyone, a vivid sense of the world is lost. Cross remembered something. He said that peer review and witchcraft were in the same category and wondered if there were skills for taming and raising monsters. He thought that tomorrow would be the beginning of May, and suddenly there would be such options on the new gacha. The hero said what else, and could the circumstances be so favorable? He thought, who knows, maybe the next gacha would also have restrictions, and in the worst case, the unused points would be gone. The hero decided that he had better spend all the points after all, and perhaps a notice would come to him in May. He thought that still this bed was really too warm, and it was as if it were designed to turn a man into a useless, lazy creature. At this time, the Duke of Backhurst's residence was discussing the assessment ceremony and the recent audience with the king. One of Cross's brothers said of him that twice already this wretch had dishonored them. Another brother said that the same one curses the next head of the family, Cross, and is it nothing that he says such things? The latter replied that it did not frighten him in the least. He had not teased him, and why should Cross take revenge on him? He said that he would rather take revenge on him, for he had teased him the most. A brother interjected and said he was only following his orders. The other cried out asking what he said he was doing. Someone pounded his fist on the table and shouted for silence. It was the father. He asked who was now going to go in search of the cross and said that this was what had to be decided first. The brothers fell silent. They were whispering. One said that the other would go. The one replied that he would cede to the elder brother the right to go on the search. The older one said that if he went to the lower world, he would be finished. One of the brothers told his father that he would go. The latter asked in surprise if it was true. He shouted to Albert. The latter said he had a secret plan. He said they would see. He would be sure to bring back the cross. The older brother asked if it was a slave collar. The younger replied that it was, and that the one on whose neck it hung would obey absolutely all orders. He replied that he understood. Junior said that it was the weapon of criminals, and Cross might find out that he had used it. Albert asked if he was now trying to point it out to him. He menacingly asked if he should burn it. There was a huge gate in front of Albert. He was told that it was a gate connecting the upper world to the lower world, but could only be entered through this tunnel. His brother asked Albert to be careful. He said that the lower world is overflowing with magical power to such an extent that it not only blocks the ability to move, but also strengthens the demons' bodies during their transformation. The one replied he'd better keep quiet. He said that he had taken 20 knights from the Backhurst family with him, and he didn't know whether he was a goblin or a wolf, but in any case just a mere minor, and asked if it was. Albert thought about how there are so many of them that it is almost impossible to find Cross. He thought that his eldest son and his brothers were incompetent, that they had a great opportunity, but none of them wanted to take it. He was going to use the cross and the slave collar to gain power in Backhurst. He commanded the boys to go ahead. They agreed. Cross, with sword in hand, stood knee-deep in the water. It was already light at the window. The hero was lying in bed. He woke up abruptly and cried out that it was morning. Looking at the calendar, he shouted that it meant it was May. He immediately started up the Gacha screen to see what it was. The screen said that the May celebration was underway. The Gacha call was confirmed, that the cross had 10,000 points and the April Gacha was over. He clicked on the screen. Cross calmed down. He said he had 10,000 points and could spin 22 times. He said if he spun 11 times in a row, he could get a rainbow one and decided to try it by clicking on the button. The chest opened and flooded everything with light. The glowing orbs took off. The hero rejoiced that he had gotten the Silver Demon Evolution Technician skill and another Rainbow Summoner skill. He read that the Demon Evolution technique promotes the evolution of demons, and the Summoner summons demons to a chosen location. Cross thought, that is, these skills are useless if he doesn't know how to control demons. He read that this skill can't be used because he doesn't have demons bound to it. The hero said that there was no need to panic, and he just needed to learn how to control demons. He shouted that the May Gacha had just begun, and he was looking forward to hearing news from Cross Sensei. He got the demon manual, summoning and using demons. He shouted happily that he had gotten all the skills in the set. Cross had read that by using demons, you could control demons if you defeated them. He thought that it seems that with this skill, he could already control them. He said that, by the way, he had learned something at the academy about how to make demons join himself. The hero fought the monster. The monster was very scared. Cross was thinking that the only way to make a demon join was to attack it slowly and lovingly without killing it. And then you have to tell it how much you want it to join, and that's as easy as it gets. He was hitting the monster and thinking what else is a love attack, that it's so slow and painful. He remembered what it was like, thinking of Albert. The hero tensed up. He thought not, tensed his fist and hit the monster very hard. The one flew backward. Cross thought he had killed it. Hearts appeared above the demon's head. The hero didn't realize what it was. He had never seen one before. He had an assumption. He decided that it wasn't the point, and he should hurry up and use demon taming. The demon rose. It asked something in its own language. Goblin became a follower. Cross shouted joyfully that he had succeeded. He said he thought he had killed him and asked if it was him. Goblin raised his hand. The hero squatted down and said he was very tired. He suggested a handshake for starters and extended his own. The demon reached out in response. He clapped Cross on the arm. He was puzzled. He told Gob that if his hand was extended to him, he should shake it like this. He shouted that he had told him, "You have to do it like this, you don't have to shake it off." The hero thought what an idiot Gobu was. His hand was swollen. He asked if the demon could remember. He decided to see the demon's characteristics. The hero was very surprised that Gobu's intelligence was 1 and realized that he was really stupid. Cross said that he had worked so hard to tame him, and here it was like this. It flashed to his mind how he had been called useless. The hero was perplexed. He remembered his older brothers telling him that useless was not needed in this world, lest he forget that they could remove him at any time. The demon looked at Cross with incomprehension. The hero thought that this guy was also useless. He held out his hand and turned to Gob. The hero stroked the demon's head. He said that they would learn. Gobu rejoiced. Cross said he answered the same thing. He thought about how he was not useless and that he would make a great warrior. He suggested he try something and used the summoning of the earth. Gobu moved. He began to look around fearfully. Cross laughed at his reaction. He said that with this speed, one could use it for surprise attacks. The demon waved his arms happily. The hero asked if he liked it. Suddenly, he heard sounds. He said that he heard something. Gobu kept waving his hands. The hero said he understood and thought he must have imagined it. On the ground lay the severed head of a goblin. Albert angrily asked what was the matter. On the ground lay the bloody bodies of the soldiers. Albert shouted out asking why they were beaten by the goblins. He turned to the observation squad. The boy asked for forgiveness. Albert said that he kinda told them to always use that skill. The guy said that because of the high concentration of magical energy, it's hard to detect not just the cross, but even demons, and when it's activated for nothing, they waste energy. Albert hit him with all his might. He kicked him and shouted no excuses, calling him a useless bastard. He thought about how he hadn't expected it to turn out so unpleasantly, and that the knights had fought worse than usual. He asked how many men had serious wounds. The battered fellow replied that 5 men. He said that everyone was wounded in this battle, so they would have to go back. Albert said they were in a hurry, and to leave those who couldn't move. Everyone was in shock. He said that if they were still alive by the time he returned, he would take them too. The people agreed. Albert thought about how he could go back there that they had just lost to the goblins, and if he didn't get the cross back, his position would be jeopardized. One of the soldiers shouted that he no longer wanted to follow them and asked to be let go. Albert turned sharply, pointing his sword forward. He drove the sword right into that soldier's mouth, stabbing him through. Blood spurted out. He asked who they thought their leader was. He said that if the guys didn't obey, the same thing would happen to him and asked if that was clear. One of the guys yelled out to Albert that they had found something that looked like human footprints. The latter was surprised. There was a boot print on the ground. Albert said they were fresh. The boy asked if they were Cresta's footprints. Albert replied that he didn't know what his footprints looked like, but they were about the size of one. The guy said okay, and then he would follow that trail. Someone barked. It was a wolf, a new companion. Cross said that meant the wolf would join them too. He looked up the specs and was surprised that the wolf's intelligence was 20, and it was smart. Gobu continued to shout. Cross asked if he wanted him to look at Io too. He said he would. The hero saw an inscription above him, asking him to give him a name. He wondered about the name. Cross said that now that they were on the same team, he wouldn't feel particularly comfortable if they didn't have names. He said he would give him a name and opened the keyboard. He said that the goblin would be called Goblin from now on. The one started to go upstairs. The hero was puzzled. The demon became a goblin girl. Cross was shocked and said that he had evolved. He thought it was the effect of the demon evolution technique he had received, and his status also jumped. The wolf barked. The hero said that's right, we should give him a name too. He introduced the name Rufun. After imagining the wolf in female form, he thought that didn't seem to fit. The wolf was illuminated by a light. It increased in size and became a beautiful she-wolf. Cross said how cool she was. He and the wolf hugged each other. The hero suggested again. He looked at them and called Goblin and Rufuna. He said that from this day forward they would live in this world together, that they were his irreplaceable companions. They threw themselves into his arms. Cross said that it was definitely a pleasure to meet them now. He said it was getting dark, so it was time for them to go home. Out of the darkness, someone appeared. Goblina noticed it. She and Rufuna looked aggressively toward the trees. The hero shouted to them. They were very angry. He asked what had suddenly happened to them. Looking to the side, he said that there was something there. Cross was shocked. He realized this was it. This barely audible sound was the scream of a man, that the source of this scream was definitely an oar. He realized that in front of him was the second son, Albert. The one said with a smirk that he had found in Cross. When Cross was still living in the upper world, he was lying on the ground in front of a dead dog. Albert said that he was just a cheeky owner of some animals, and to dispose of his corpse afterward. He said that Cross apparently did not know his place. Albert said that Cross was a murderer, therefore he couldn't get anything. He said that Cross was the only one he had ever forgiven, and that he would live under his oppression for the rest of his life. Now, however, they stood opposite each other. The hero was frightened. He was thinking about Albert, the second son of the Backhurst family, why he was here. The one said that he had been looking for the cross for so long. He said he thought he was dead, and this day seemed to be the happiest day of his life. The hero asked why the man had come. The older brother was surprised. He asked if he wasn't happy to see his brother and said that he should be happy. He said he had come here to get him. He apologized for chasing him away and said it was just a joke. Cross yelled that it was very funny and he almost died from such jokes. Albert asked if it was wrong that he was still alive and asked him not to be so cynical. He thought what a surprise. He understood how Cross felt. He thought about the fact that the latter was clearly not angry now, but just scared. Albert remembered that he and his brothers had instilled fear and despair in him from birth. They had made sure he could never stand up to them. He thought about the fact that although he had a very rare skill, it didn't matter, and if he obeyed it, he would be fine. He turned to the guys. Those responded. Albert said that if any of them were afraid of this demon, he would kill them and asked if they agreed. Those frightened agreed. He asked Cross if he had any new animals. He asked why he needed them, for they would soon die again. The hero began to make excuses that he didn't kill him. Albert said he didn't, and he was the one who killed it. He said that that dog died because Cross was too weak. The one was very scared and could not answer anything. Albert said that the hero was irresponsible. That's why he wouldn't be able to take care of the demon and called out to him to go. Cross shouted that they would not return home. Albert turned around. The hero said that he had decided that he would live here and he would like Albert to leave. The man thought for a moment and said that was it. He said that it didn't seem to come to him. The hero was very frightened. Albert shouted what the hell he was talking about, that he should be more respectful, that he was a piece of idiot. Cross was shocked. His heart was beating very fast. His legs were trembling. Albert yelled that and more. What the hell was he doing here? That this demon had gotten to him, to shut up. He shouted that otherwise he would shut him up himself by slitting his throat. Cross, covered in sweat, stammering, apologized. Albert thought that the trauma switch was on, and that was his secret. He realized that Cross's brain was so tense that he could no longer think coherently. Rufuna barked loudly. She clenched her fangs. Albert's boys were thinking about how it was so scary, but if they chickened out, Albert would immediately finish them off. Suddenly, Cross shouted to his demons to stop. They were surprised. He said he was asking them to stop, and what would happen if they didn't listen to his brother. He said his brother would beat him. Albert began to laugh. He laughed and said that Cross was telling the truth, that he just had to obey him. He yelled that it was because he was incompetent and unworthy of life. Thoth agreed and asked for forgiveness. Albert yelled that if the one ever became disobedient again, he would beat him again. The hero agreed. He said he was guilty, he was sorry, he asked for forgiveness. Albert thought that this was great, that now he had closed up and was just perfect, and he didn't even have to use the slave collar. He thought it was because from the beginning he had been wearing a collar that couldn't be removed. He shouted to the boys to take him away. Those obeyed. The hero was handcuffed. The demons looked confused at what was happening. The goblin called out to him. She reached for the cross. One of the guys prepared his fists and told her not to get so close to him. He punched her. The demon flew backward but landed on her feet. She was confused. Cross was being led away. He apologized and asked for forgiveness. He said he told her they were friends from now on, and he thought he would be a great warrior. He said he was sorry he was so useless. The goblin looked at him. She began to scream. She moved right in front of him. The hero's tears were flowing, and she was screaming. He asked what she was doing. The demon turned around and ran. She hid in the bushes. Cross thought that she had gotten loose so easily, then their friendship was over so quickly. He wondered if his last memories of his friends would be like this, if he would be able to see him again, if he would be able to learn new rare skills. He wondered if this was his fate. Rufuna tugged at his clothes. Cross turned to her. He asked her to back off. He said that if she behaved like that, she would be beaten too. The hero told her to better run away from here to another place. He wanted to say something about his brother. The latter interrupted him and shouted that it was unbearable. Albert ordered Cross to kill that dog. He said that if he did so, he would recognize that Cross was not incompetent. He said to hurry up, or he would kill her for him, and he would be just as useless. The hero thought he couldn't kill her, but if he didn't, Albert would beat him again. His tears flowed. Suddenly, he noticed something. The guys didn't realize what it was, assuming it was that goblin. Rufuna barked. Albert punched Cross. He yelled at that useless bastard and asked if he had called them here. He shouted for the man to drive them away immediately. The hero thought about the fact that he knew his brother would still hit him. He noticed something strange. He couldn't hear his brother's voice and felt his mind clearing. He thought about the fact that he could still feel Rufuna's warmth not far from him and could clearly hear Goblina's voice. He realized that he had heard that tone of hers before. Cross assumed that she liked something. He remembered exactly what it was. Then she was infatuated with something. He remembered the way she moved and thought she had such good reactions and also her speed. A realization came to the hero. He began to scream. He shouted loudly to the Goblina. She was sitting in a tree. She heard him. Cross stood up. He was putting his thoughts in order. He used the summoning. The hero was focused. The summoning skill began to work. As if out of nowhere, a goblin appeared right in front of Albert, ready to attack. He was puzzled. Albert screamed. The demon struck him a blow. He flew backward with a scream. He asked what had even happened, saying that some monster had just appeared out of nowhere. Goblina ran toward the cross. He called out to her. The hero stroked her head and told her how smart she was. She cheered. He asked if she had planned this all along. Cross smiled embarrassedly. Goblina cheerfully agreed. Albert asked Cross where he was going so he could face him. He shouted that he would fight, that Cross was unworthy to be a member of the family, that he was a nobody. The hero's handcuffs began to change shape. Albert was shocked. Cross created a sword out of the handcuffs and said that just as he had said, Albert had never been and would never be his brother. Thoth realized that he had made a sword out of handcuffs. Cross pointed the sword at his brother and shouted that Albert Backhurst was only his enemy. Cross pointed his sword at Albert. He looked determined. Albert took hold of the tip of the sword and said well. The sword began to melt. He shouted that this time he would finally imprint the consequences of disobedience on Cross's head. He shouted to the knights to kill this monster now. He shouted for what they were worth. Albert shouted with great anger that they were still knights after all, that they should obey his orders even if they required that they kill someone. Those people's hands trembled. They ran with an attack on Goblina and Rufuna. In the end, they groaned in pain as they lay on the ground. The demons stood unharmed. Albert was frightened. Cross wondered if he thought he would be confused if they both attacked them. He said that his brother's subordinates were alarmed even at the voice of Rufuna and Goblina, and the scream he had heard earlier was probably caused by a demon attack. He said that they were superior to them in terms of strength. Albert was trembling. He shouted for Cross not to be so cocky, calling him a bastard. He was furious, and in his palms he created a flame. He, laughing, shouted that they were finished, that his fire magic skill had reached level 5, that she was the best in this world and he couldn't lose with her. He shouted to Cross to receive fire while putting his hand forward. A ball of fire flew at the hero. The one used earth magic, building a wall in front of the fire. Albert was very surprised and wondered how much skill he had. He thought that he needed to calm down, that no matter how many skills he had, there was nothing he could do to defeat his fire magic. He shouted that it was just a wall of earth and he would easily break it with continuous blows. Albert began to attack very quickly, launching fire at the wall. The whole wall was black and covered in smoke, but it remained intact. He didn't understand why it wasn't breaking. He wondered if Cross's earth magic level was higher than 5th. The man disagreed and said he was level 3. Albert was shocked. He asked how this was possible and if this was another advantage of the divine gacha skill. Cross interjected about the divine gacha skill, and could it be the true reason why he had come after him? His brother was perplexed. He tensed up. Albert said that the cross gacha skill was given to him by God to save the upper world. He said that demons had recently started appearing frequently in the upper world, and it was said to be an omen before the coming events. He cried out that he was asking the cross to come home with him so that they could save the upper world. The brother remained silent. Albert thought that bowing down to this useless creature was the most humiliating thing he had ever done. But one must be patient, and the only thing left to do was to wait for the moment to put the slave collar on him. Cross approached him and told him to look at him, calling him brother. He was surprised. A sword appeared in Albert's shoulder. He did not realize what was happening. He screamed. The hero said he was only here because the guys chased him away. He said he didn't care what happened to Albert, the one who couldn't stop yelling that he was in pain. He was thinking that Cross was serious about stabbing him, that he was going to be killed. The hero asked what that look was. He asked if his brother thought he would believe him after something like that. The one shouted that his father was very sorry. He said that he would give him the duchy, that all the power and possessions of the Backhurst family would be in his hands. Cross replied that he didn't need it and pushed the sword further. Albert shouted. The hero thought about what he was doing. He thought that if he hurt his leg, he would never be able to get home. Albert screamed, asking to stop, asking for help. Cross thought it would be better to kill him right there. The goblin tugged at his clothes. The hero calmed down. He used water magic and the Karma Ruler skill. Albert asked if it was some kind of poison. Cross replied that his brother had lost, and for him to go back to the upper world and report it. He told him not to contact him again, and that he would not spare him next time. He thought about the fact that if he killed him, he would be no different from him, that he was no longer Cross Backhurst, he was just Cross. The hero called the demons to go. They turned around and walked. Albert began to laugh. He thought that Cross was an idiot. He thought about the fact that he really thought he had defeated him, but he had another trump card stashed away. He pulled out the collar and thought about his brother turning his back on him, that he would become his slave and regret it for the rest of his life. Suddenly, goblins appeared behind him. They attacked Albert, causing him to be shocked. He shouted, asking what this was even about, and asked them to let him go. He yelled to stop, asking why they were undressing him and if they thought they could get away with it so easily. He yelled what the hell were those other rocks and asked to stop. Albert screamed in pain. The goblins had beaten his legs off with the stones. He was flooding with tears and screaming. Cross thought about something he had learned at the academy, that goblins during mating season could attack a member of another race of the opposite sex. He thought that maybe they would attack him too. The goblin looked at them. One of the goblins gave her a thumbs up. She smilingly replied in the same way. The goblins carried Albert away, accompanied by his loud screams. Cross said he didn't even know if this was a good or bad ending. He sat down on a stump and exhaled. Goblina brought him a peach and Rufuna brought him grapes. He asked if they had picked it for him and thanked. He chewed the peach thoughtfully. The hero thought about the divine skill of Gacha. He said that he thought it was a hellish skill, and he couldn't even think that it was capable of saving the upper world. Cross thought about wondering what would happen to the upper world if he wasn't there at this time. He thought that if the demons attacked them, Ellis would hardly be able to do anything about it, that he felt sorry for Mina, alone to deal with her. The demons shouted frustratedly at him. He asked for forgiveness. The hero told them not to be afraid, but he wasn't going anywhere, and that he was sorry they had to go through this. He told the goblin that it seemed that that goblin woman had given her some kind of sign. The woman was glad. She turned away embarrassed and covered her face with her hands. Cross said that this day had been so long. He suggested that they go home. The demons rejoiced. The three of them set off into the setting sun. Suddenly, they heard a loud sound. The hero asked if it was a monster. He said that it was no good, that he wanted to get home as soon as possible, and he didn't particularly want to get into trouble. Cross decided he should take a look at it with his skills. He used the omniscient technique. He was surprised that it was a cow, and next to it, he saw a girl. Cross was puzzled. Realizing that it was a man, he had some strange feeling. The girl had a sword in her hands. She, already exhausted, waved it in front of the monster. The cow had a huge horn that looked like a sharp sword. She pointed it at the girl, and the girl was already exhausted. Suddenly, the cow screamed loudly. The girl closed her eyes fearfully, and then she heard a loud sound. She opened one eye. She saw that Cross was holding back the monster's attack. He shouted that he would help her and asked if she understood him. Tha answered in the affirmative. The hero said that was excellent. He shouted to Goblin and Rufuna to help. The monster was defeated and 200 points were displayed above it. The girl thanked him for his help. Cross said it was fine and not worth it. He said she seemed to be dizzy and asked if she was okay. The girl started to answer, but she was shaking very badly. The hero thought she was all pale and told her to bear it for a while. He used the expertise. Cross was very surprised. It was written that she was poisoned with a deadly poison. He shouted to her to hold on and he would make the medicine right away. The girl lay on the ground. The hero said it was an antidote for her to drink it and that it would help. The girl took a sip from the mug. She was visibly relieved. She said it tasted good and also that unpleasant feeling was gone. Cross said it was excellent. He reflected. The girl said it was the first time she had tasted such a delicious medicine. The hero thought that she was human after all. He thought he sensed no human or demonic energy when using such a skill. He asked if she was human. The one was confused. She took up her hood. She took it off, which discouraged Cross. The girl asked if she looked like a human being. The hero was surprised. She said she was the queen of the goblins. Cross asked if she was the queen of the goblins. The girl answered in the affirmative. He thought about the fact that sometimes creatures of non-human race are born with some mutations that give them special abilities. Such special creatures are called kings and queens, and their purpose is to continue and protect the race. He thought about the fact that he had learned about this at the academy, and it was a non-human girl. She said that she had one request for him. The Goblin Queen asked if he could help her save her village. The hero asked in what sense to save. She said that there was a village at the foot of this mountain, and that is where she lived. She said that today they were suddenly attacked by poisonous creatures. They got away from them, but many of the villagers still managed to get poisoned. The girl said that they would all die if they didn't get help in time and asked very much to save them. Cross hesitated. He said it was too dangerous to move through the woods in such darkness. He used the magic of light, and the forest was illuminated by rays. The hero asked how many inhabitants were poisoned. The Goblin Queen wondered how bright it was, and then replied that it was about 10. He thought about it and said that he would need to buy ingredients for an antidote on the way. The girl was puzzled. She asked if that was how he would help them. Cross replied that he saw no reason to refuse and would save them at any cost. He asked Goblina and Rufina if they wouldn't mind walking around a bit more. The two agreed. The Goblin Queen was trembling. She thanked Cross very much and said that she would never forget his kindness. Thoth said that it was not a great matter. He said he thought he would have to ask for something in return. She asked if land and labor. The hero said that he would like to make a new base in their village, and also that they would clean up there in his absence, and he would pay for it. He asked what she thought. The Goblin Queen said to provide it to them, and that she was sure everyone in the village would welcome him. The hero said then on his way. The girl asked if he could tell her his name. He came to his senses. He said his name was Cross, and his companions were Goblin and Rufun. He asked what her name was. The girl said her name was Livia. She said he was very strong, but would be happy to work with Cross. There was discussion in the upper world that Albert Backhurst had gone to the lower world the other day. Minu said it was the brother of Cross, Ellis's former fiancé, and asked if she knew. Ellis replied that she was not interested in anyone but Cross himself, and in general, the word former was superfluous here. Minu said that the Missicilian family had also planned to send troops to the lower world, but since the number of demons had increased dramatically, protecting the upper world had become a priority, and for that reason, she and Ellis were here. The latter replied that she wanted it to stop soon and asked why this place was common. She asked if Cresta had returned this alb, or whatever his name was. Minu answered in the negative, and they seemed to have lost sight of him, though they were already on the trail. Ellis asked about the answer that Minu had now gotten, whether it was correct that it had something to do with the Backhurst family. She thought that it turns out her Cross was alive. She was very glad. She asked why Minu was so tense and said that they could take their time, because the Riffild's chosen troops would surely bring Cross back. Ellis asked if she agreed. Ta asked why she should care, adding that he would not return anyway, no matter what they did. She said her only concern was that life in the lower world was extremely uncomfortable. Ellis asked if Minu was going to switch places with Cross, and if things weren't so easy down there. The latter replied in the affirmative, and that Ellis was right. She said that if she did that, she might not be able to go back. At this time, Cross collected 10 poison bee needles and 5 poison snake fangs. He said he thought it would be enough. Livia thanked him for helping her gather the materials and said that she had taken it up with him and everyone else. Cross said she had only recently gotten over her illness and could take it easy, and it looked like Goblin and Rufuna wanted to fight. They were walking through the forest at night. The hero thought about how he had never had such a painful experience in the upper world, but now it was over. He thought that his gacha skill was really good, and to change that he needed to keep enslaving monsters, which he often found difficult because there were skills he couldn't use alone. Livia said she wanted to see Cross apply gacha. They had already seen the village. As they approached, goblins were walking around and shouting to miss Livia in search of her. Suddenly one pointed his finger and said to look. They spotted Livia. The goblins shouted her name, that they were glad she was safe. They shouted that she had disappeared so suddenly, and did she realize how worried they were. Ta apologized and said that she had left them a note after all. They yelled that they were so worried about it and asked what she was thinking when she decided to go there alone with poisoning. Livia said they could lecture her afterward, especially since this man had cured her of her poisoning. She pointed to the cross. The goblin asked who was the savior who had performed this miracle. They shouted, wondering if it was a human and what a human was doing here. Livia asked the boys to calm down. She said it was not just a man, it was the savior of the cross. The goblin told Livia that the humans had banished them to the lower world after all. She said that the past can no longer be changed, but now the first priority is to save the lives of the villagers. The goblins agreed. They told Cross to come this way, calling him a human. The goblins were lying on the floor with rags on their heads. They were in bad shape. Livia turned to Gobzo. She told him that everything would be all right and asked him to drink this, holding out a drink to him. The goblin, after drinking it, was surprised. He said that he felt fine. The goblin woman shouted that he was fine. She ran to his arms, screaming that she was so worried. One of the goblins said that it was really a miracle. The goblins apologized to Cross for disrespecting them. They said he was the real savior of the village, and he cured them all. Livia said that once they finished curing them, they would move on and asked Gobzo to rest for a while. The goblins yelled at Livia that it was her, that she always does that, and this time it was already too selfish. The girl begged for forgiveness. Later, she told Cross that this was her home and that there was also room for guests, so she asked him to settle down. She said that in fact, she would like to have a welcome dinner for him, but she must take responsibility for leaving the village. Cross said he was grateful that she had lent him a bed. He thought about being impressed not only with the exterior, but also the interior, but the bed is just fallen leaves. He decided that since everyone was already asleep, he should lie down too, since it was just one fight all day. He thought he should take a break and use the skills item creation, potions, water magic. He created a glass cup and an energy potion. The hero thought about the fact that skills don't activate if you take the time to name them, and even if he looked back on it now, at the same time he couldn't afford to think about creating items. He looked at the burning candle. Closing his eyes, he concentrated on putting out the fire. Opening his eyes, the hero realized that everything was unchanged. Lying down on the leaves, he decided it was time to sleep. Cross thought about skills, demons, gacha, half-human, the border of the lower world. He thought about the fact that there were many more terms whose meaning he did not know. It was morning in the village. The goblins were very surprised and said it was cool. They saw a house being built in an instant, the same in structure and complexity as Livia's. Cross said that, by the way, he was thinking of rebuilding their houses that were damaged in the attack. He asked if it would be alright if they were the same. The goblins asked in surprise if that was true. He asked if they knew when these creatures might still attack. The goblins thanked Cross. Livia said that the cross was truly marvelous. The one replied that he just has that skill. He asked if Livia cooks. She replied affirmatively and that she was reaching out to him. The hero saw a baby crab and said that it would be especially delicious if he made sashimi out of it. He said they could make a wonderful soup out of its leftovers. Livia asked in surprise about sashimi and soup. She asked what it was. The goblin girls also discussed that they didn't know. Cross said that when meat is cooked this way, it has a flavor, salt should be added. The girl asked about the salt, adding that she didn't know such a thing existed. After tasting it, she said it was very good, and it was an excellent flavor. Cross replied that he was glad. She said that he knew a lot of things, and besides, he knew how to handle that iron cup, that no one in the village had even guessed it. The hero looked at the goblins washing themselves. One was pouring water on the others while standing on the table. They shouted at him to better regulate the temperature of the water, and he replied to be quiet, and that it was hard for him to concentrate in such noise. The hero asked if this goblin knew how to use magic. Livia answered in the affirmative, and that they could use some other magic skills. She said that he was the only one who could use water magic. Cross said that then they could use a bathtub to reduce their magician's workload. The girl asked what it was. He used blacksmithing and said that, for example, a bathtub like this. Livia was surprised. She said, so that is what it is, and asked how to use it. Cross was embarrassed. He didn't understand what was wrong with this village. Night came. Cross asked Goblina and Rufuna if the two of them lived in such a doghouse. They answered in the affirmative. He thought that they really were monsters after all, and he wondered if they would settle down in such a quiet place. The hero rejoiced and said that he hadn't slept on such a soft bed in a long time, and it was like he was floating in the air. He said that if Livia would allow his house to be remodeled, he would like a more comfortable bed for himself. He thought about the fact that sashimi and soup are unusual things for them. He thought that of course he didn't want to think of them in a prejudiced way, but it was just odd. Livia asked if he was still awake. He asked if it was her and said it wasn't. She opened the door ajar. The girl was in a nightie and Cross in bewilderment immediately jumped up. Livia was very embarrassed. The hero asked what was the matter. She bowed and said that as the head of the village, she would like to thank him for all he had done. She said that because of the cross, the standard of living in the village had improved a lot. The hero replied that they still had a long way to go. Livia said that she is a leader. She has a duty to protect the village, and yet it can't go on like this, or she will cause their demise. Cross told her not to be so pessimistic. The girl climbed onto his bed and told him that she had one request. The hero turned to her in confusion, not realizing what was going on. She turned to him. Livia asked if he could marry her. Cross was shocked. They both didn't understand what was happening. Cross looked at Livia in surprise. He realized why she was dressed like that. He figured there was nothing wrong with staying in the same bed with a guy at night. The girl turned to him in embarrassment. She suggested that they cement their agreement. She collapsed abruptly on the bed. Cross shouted to her. He asked if she was okay, said he wasn't forcing her to do anything. The girl said she couldn't. He exhaled. Hero said she didn't have to do anything, and if she had a problem, she could tell him about it. He queried about the alliance with the werewolves. Livia said that the alliance is only a name and those want them under their control. She said that in addition, they seemed to have a crisis looming with a recent monster outbreak, so they needed offspring from goblins who could mate with other races. She said that if things were the same, the werewolves would soon overrun them. Cross thought that this is the reason for the wedding. He apologized and said he didn't like marriages of convenience and other things, that they wouldn't have a wedding. Livia sat sadly. He threw his jacket over her. The hero said that he could not turn a blind eye to the fact that she and the goblins were in a difficult situation and he would help them. Livia became embarrassed and her tears flowed. She hugged the cross and thanked him. The hero asked if she could get dressed. She said she was sorry he had seen her in that outfit, that she especially never wore it, and asked him not to think bad things about her. Cross said he didn't, asking her to calm down. He thought it was a very radical outfit. He wondered about the outfit. The hero asked the girl if she was interested in clothes or something. The one replied that if you think about it that way, she didn't have much interest in it. Livia said that in the past there had been craftsmen who did it, but now they were gone, so there was no one to make clothes, and then the village began to lose interest in it. Cross was surprised. That's how it is, he said. The girl embarrassedly said that she meant that her clothes were inherited from her ancestors, so she had absolutely nothing against wearing them. Cross thought that they didn't seem to be very knowledgeable, despite their skill with weapons and farming tools. After all, only Livia's house was set up. He thought that they had no continuity of technology, that in the upper world there were many technologies besides weaponry that could be taught, but here it seems that technology is dead. Livia kept asking him not to think wrong, explaining that that was not the reason he was walking around dressed like that. Cross thought about the fact that he didn't know what the cause of their degradation was, but if this continued, the clan and the village would become extinct. He turned to Livia. She responded. He used the tailoring technique and asked how about trying it on. The girl was surprised. She put on the new clothes. Livia said it was very nice. The hero said he was glad she liked it. She asked if she could keep it. He replied that of course. The girl was very pleased. She thanked Cross and said she would keep the garment all her life. The heroes sat in the house. A werewolf came up to them. He said he was glad Livia had come. It was the werewolf king Orpheus. He and Cross looked at each other. The girl told Orpheus that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. He said to return to the topic of conversation, that if she had come here, then she had agreed to the alliance after all. Livia replied in the negative and that she refused to talk about it. The werewolf said that he didn't seem to have heard her well. He offered again, just to be sure, and asked if she had come here because she had agreed to the alliance, and whether that was true. The girl disagreed and said that, as she had said, she refused to talk about it. Other werewolves appeared in the house. Orpheus said there was nothing to be done. He glared at them. He shouted to the boys to get their weapons and that they were going to the goblin village. They shouted and were ready for battle. Cross said to wait a while. Orpheus looked at him in surprise. He asked who else he was. The hero replied that he was Cross, that though he was a man, he was indebted to the goblin village for his reasons. The boys were discussing what a man was doing in the lower world. The hero said that they were not here to fight them, that they wanted to make an alliance on equal terms. Orpheus interrogated about equal terms and said not to make him laugh. He said that proud werewolves were not the equal of some goblins. The werewolves shouted that was right, offering to let his majesty kill them. They surrounded the heroes. Livia turned to the Cross. Rufuna looked aggressive. Orpheus noticed the goblin and the wolf and thought it couldn't be that way. He asked who gave this monster a magical name. Cross was surprised. He wondered what kind of magical name. Livia said that it was Cross, that unlike the others, he had many powers, and for him giving names was like having breakfast. Thoth asked the girl to wait and asked what a magical name was. The Thoth asked in surprise if he had given it to two beings and did not know what it was. She said that a magical name is a special name given to specific beings under certain conditions, and it is said that a person with such a name is given amplifications for various abilities, so that one can feel the results immediately. He said that this is how it is. He asked if Livia's name was magical. Orpheus told the man that he would consider him a representative of the goblins. He said that was why he was challenging him to a duel. Orpheus said that if he won, the goblins would go after them and only they would give them magical names. Livia shouted to him that these agreements are unilateral. Cross said that was fine and asked what would happen if he won. Orpheus said that he could do whatever he wanted and talk aside. He said he was the werewolf king Orpheus, and the goblin representative Cross announced a duel. Livia asked Cross for forgiveness. The latter asked why. She said that as a result, all the blame fell on him. The hero told her not to worry about it, and that her name had become a bargaining chip, and it was good that it had not come to war. He said that he didn't want to be a fool, that he couldn't stand being exploited unilaterally. The girl turned to him and took his hand. She wished him good luck. The werewolf shouted that they were starting. Orpheus laughed loudly, and in a leap made the first blow with all his might. Cross fell backward, but managed to dodge. The werewolf struck again, but the hero jumped up. He didn't realize how. He kept swinging his sword, but Cross deftly dodged. The werewolves were discussing why he was avoiding all of their king's attacks, that there was nothing he could do to him. Orpheus shouted that it was useless if Cross decided to wear him down, that he seemed to underestimate the physical strength of wolves. The hero thought about the fact that it had been a long time since he had fought with swords, that his body remembered what he had been taught in the aristocratic school. He thought that he couldn't be in too much of a hurry. He needed to be calmer. He needed to regain control of the situation. Orpheus swung his sword with a shout. The hero thought that right there. He used his martial art and struck the werewolf's hand with his fist, the part of it holding the sword. Orpheus' hand was covered in blood. Cross easily knocked his sword away from him. He was ready to attack. The hero made a swipe, catching the werewolf's hair. The one was puzzled. They said they had a winner. Said it couldn't be, and Mr. Orpheus had lost. The werewolf asked to be killed. He said he was now too ashamed to live. Cross asked if anyone wanted to kill him. Orpheus was surprised. The hero asked if it wasn't Orpheus who said that he could do anything if he won. He said the whole point was that he wanted the one to live. He said Orpheus would live and make an alliance with them, the goblins, and of course on equal terms. Cross said his shame was not in staying alive, but in wanting to leave his people and die first. The werewolves cried out that this was true, that he was the one they considered the only legitimate heir to their lineage, that if the Lord King left them, how would they live without him? Orpheus turned to them. He was tense. He slapped one of the werewolves and told them not to show him their weakness. The one shouted that he was in pain. Orpheus turned to Cross, calling him his boss. The one was surprised. The werewolf said that if the one wanted to use him in any way, he would like to be his sword. The hero asked him to wait a while. Orpheus shouted to the guys that from today, Cross is their boss. Those replied that he was so sure. The hero asked to let him speak. He said he wasn't going to be their leader and asked if it was so easy to forbid them to consider him boss. He was approached by Livia. She said she was impressed by what she said earlier, and she too would swear allegiance to him. Cross thought she was the same way, and that things were moving so quickly then. Everyone was shouting that he was the chief, their leader. Thoth frowned and thought they were so simple. He said he wasn't going to be their boss. Cross said that if the werewolves and goblins signed an alliance in this way, it would be justified, and then he needed to be their boss. The werewolves cheered. Cross told Orpheus that Livia should not marry him. The latter replied that, of course, they had agreed, as he suddenly realized the question and asked again. He asked what he was talking about and said that he was not going to start a family. The girl asked in surprise if that was what they had suggested to her when they talked about the alliance. The werewolf said that he just needed strong warriors, and once long ago he had heard about the fighting power of the Goblin Queen. The one was shocked. The girl screamed that she had made another mistake by turning herself into a tragic heroine. Cross replied that the result was quite good. He asked regarding the strong warrior whether it was because of the demons that were all amplified in the lower world. Orpheus was surprised. He answered in the negative. He said that for some purposes he needed more than one warrior. He clenched his fist. Cross asked if he could elaborate on that purpose. Orpheus replied that what he was going to talk about was about the monstrous past that had happened in their Darren, that it was the story of a single war werewolf who had been blinded by his sins. In the village, one of the goblins said he wondered if Cross and Livia were all right. Another said the two couldn't fail and asked if that was the case. A goblin ran up to them screaming that they were in danger. He shouted that a horde of werewolves were heading towards their village. He was asked what this meant, and if he meant to say that Cross and Livia had been killed. The werewolves approached the village. They all bowed and apologized to the goblins for the possible inconvenience. Those were shocked. Orpheus told them that they used to live in a village further north. He said that at that time his father was their king, and he had to decide who would become his successor. He said that his father died, or was killed before he could declare an heir his brother Verd. The werewolf said that his father had written his name on a tablet naming him as his heir, and when his brother found out, he flew into a rage and killed him on the spot. He said that another brother accused him of killing their father, and they even tried to execute him. Livia said it was horrible. The werewolves discussed that their boss was a principled man and treated them lowlifes well. Orpheus said that he was on the verge of execution when these guys from his father's group saved him, so he managed to escape. He said he should have told them first, and they might have jeopardized themselves by detaining him. Cross put his hand on his shoulder. He said that they had made an alliance, and he could not worry about it. Toth replied that he appreciated that. The hero offered to get busy and think about how to arrange their living arrangements. He said the first was the issue of segregation, which had been an issue before. The goblins did not understand what was going on. Cross apologized to them for so abruptly the werewolf tribe decided to come here. The goblins were shocked. Orpheus suggested that to apologize for the trouble he had caused them, give him and his boys jobs. One of the goblins wanted to refuse, but the other said that if Mrs. Livia and Cross didn't mind, he would agree. Those smiled. Cross said that he was now going to go explore the western part. The goblin asked if that meant Master Cross was going to use his skills to build a house. The hero answered in the negative and said that werewolves cut down trees and build houses by themselves. The goblin was surprised. Cross said that there is someone who has the skills of building. The werewolf girl said it was nice to meet her and that she could only draw blueprints, but she wasn't even close to Cross's level, but still she would help build a house. The hero said that from now on he wants her and her team to do construction in the village, that they can also bring other skills such as cooking, farming, and making clothes to develop this village. The goblins discussed the development that they had never thought of it before, and it's pretty cool. They called out to Cross asking if there was anything they could do to help. Everyone joined in. He said they were going to chop wood first. The goblins happily agreed. The goblins and werewolves chopped trees and worked on building a house. It was already getting dark. Cross proposed a celebration of friendship between goblins and werewolves. Everyone shouted, "Hurrah!" over drinks. Sitting on rugs, a feast was organized. Livia turned to Cross. The man replied that it was about time. He said he would like everyone to look over here a little. He told the Goblin Queen and the Werewolf King that he would give them a name. A few hours ago, Livia asked for the hero's attention. The man asked her what was wrong. She said she had an urgent request. She said she realized it was too much, but asked if he could give them a magical name. Cross said he didn't mind and suggested they start. Orpheus was surprised and said that was a quick answer. Livia asked if he was sure. The werewolf said he had heard it was a rather complicated ritual. The hero replied that it wasn't, and that he was just naming them. He asked if they were sure they wanted to leave the magical name as it was now. Orpheus answered in the affirmative and asked to keep the name. The girl said that she too wanted to stay Livia. The hero hesitated for a moment. He said that tonight they would hold a ceremony in front of everyone to give them magical names. Now Orpheus was on his knee in front of him. Cross turned to the Werewolf King and said that from now on he was authorizing him to take the name Orpheus as his magical name. He inscribed the name on the screen. The werewolf was surprised. He stood up and shouted about the power that he felt a surge of strength in his body. Cross said that from now on, he was authorizing the Goblin Queen to take the name Livia as her magical name, whereupon he inscribed that name. The girl stood up. She thought about what the Goblin Queen had said that her appearance changed after taking the name, and maybe she could. After finishing, Livia realized that there was no external change. She sadly asked Cross if it was true that she had not changed. He disagreed and cheerfully said that their status had been greatly increased. He thanked her. Cross apologized to everyone for keeping them waiting and said that sayas they would give them all magical names. The goblins and werewolves were shocked. They asked if they were going to give them to them too. The hero replied that of course. He said that they would develop the village together and the status of each villager should also be high. Everyone started asking to be named first, shouting to the Cross. He asked them to take their time and get in line. At this time in the upper world, the king asked for heads to be raised. The representatives of the three duchies stood before him. The king said that he would like to discuss the current situation with each of them. First, he addressed the house of Backhurst. Father Cross responded fearfully. He said that Albert was still missing, but they were doing the best they could with their situation. The king shouted that that was not what he was asking him. He asked if Cross had returned yet and ordered a search party to be sent there immediately. Duke Backhurst said that there are so many demons in the area that they can't handle them all. Duke Rayfield turned to the king and said that if they wanted to ensure the return of the cross, but they must send Ellis. Duke Missicilian told the king that no, and he thought Mina would be the best choice to search the lower world, and she could act on her own, unaccompanied. The king replied that neither of those things are good. He said that even now Ellis is defending the royal city using her skills from the underground temple, but they can't be sure that they won't be attacked by stronger demons in the future. Ellis's father shouted that may Minu be enough to defend the upper world and asked that Ellis be sent. Minu's father shouted that the upper world needed Miss Ellis' skills and would send Minu to search the lower world. The other yelled that they couldn't let anything happen. Minu pondered without listening to their arguments. She wondered when she would see Cross again. At this time in the lower world, Cross was shouting to Livia to keep a close eye on the enemy. He shouted that her body was being carried away after she swung her sword. The girl struck the blows. The bloody monster was lying on the ground. She shouted that it had succeeded. The hero said it was good. He thought about the fact that he had given all the villagers a magic name and was now teaching them how to hunt and handle weapons. Cross said he didn't expect Livia's swordsmanship to go this far. The girl replied that it surprised her too. She said that those mountain monkeys had been tormenting the goblin tribes for years and couldn't believe that the magic name made it possible to defeat them so easily. The goblin told Livia that they had found unfamiliar mushrooms. The girl responded. One of the goblins told Cross that she looked like the old Livia again. The one was surprised. The goblin said that ever since Lady Livia met Cross, she laughs a lot like a little girl. He turned to Cross and asked him to continue to be a source for her support. The hero replied that, of course. Livia apologized to the hero for keeping her waiting and asked if he knew how to eat monkey meat. Toph answered in the negative, and that such flesh was not his. He wondered. Above the monster was written 300 points. The girl asked if something was wrong. The hero was surprised, but then replied that no. He wondered if they don't see the points when they defeat enemies. He said that they still couldn't be around and suggested to continue hunting further. Cross thought that this could not be. Night came and the hero was home. He was perplexed. On the gacha screen, he saw that he had 15,000 points and had accumulated gacha for 33 times. Cross thought about the fact that he didn't remember gaining points, and that number had come up the day Livia had killed one demon. He wondered if it was possible that the points of the creature he had given a magical name to would go to him. He didn't realize if it was serious. The hero said no, that he should be more calm, and it was really a level that was later revised downward. Then he only got one. Cross thought that before it was fixed, he would pretend that he hadn't noticed it and quickly put things in order. Suddenly Livia came into the room and asked him if he could have a word. He was very frightened and shouted asking what was the matter. The girl asked if he was busy with something. The hero answered in the negative and that he was just looking at the screen with gacha. He said that there was a gacha screen and asked if Livia could see it. The latter replied that she could not see anything. She asked if it would not inconvenience him if she could watch it next to him. Cross replied that okay, but he didn't think she would know what to do. The girl replied that just being around him, she felt she was beginning to realize it. Cross was uncomfortable. Suddenly, she saw the gacha screen and was very surprised by it. She told Cross that she saw it too. The latter asked in surprise if it was true. Livia said that maybe it was because she had touched it. The hero said that was understandable, and then he thought he could show what gacha was. The girl sat on his lap. He asked her what it was. She apologized and asked him to show her what gacha is. Cross embarrassedly agreed. He wondered if it was some kind of custom. He thought about the fact that after what happened last night, he'd better not ask too many questions. Hero suggested she do the first 11 rounds and pressed. A bright flash appeared and balloons hung in the air. Livia marveled. She asked if this was the gacha of skills. She said the gacha was so sparkling and beautiful, and those rainbow-colored balls looked like gems. Cross told her to catch, and she touched the balloon. It glowed. Livia told the Cross that these orbs began to glow. He replied that the orbs from this gacha had levels of rarity, namely rainbow, gold, silver, and bronze, and the best skills were the rainbow-colored orbs. The orb became a summoner skill. The girl asked about summoner. The hero said it was a skill that instantly summons contract demons. He said that the rainbow orb always brings an improved skill every month, and he had already gotten 3 different summoner skills in May. Livia asked if she got those 3 types, would she need to spin again? Cross answered in the negative, and that if one gets the same skill, The bonus over and effect will add up, but a maximum of 4 rainbow orbs will be needed. The girl asked if she could look at the other skills. Cross offered to open them all at once. The orbs began to glow. Livia was surprised at how many skills there were. The hero said that the steel colors are for skills that improve abilities, the silver ones are for technology, and the gold ones are for magic skills, except for the rainbow colors, and they don't seem to have a level limit, so the more you collect them, the more you can improve them. More and more skill balls appeared in the air. Livia said about the new skills and asked if there weren't any before. Cross replied in the affirmative and that he had raised the level of many useful skills, so the results were good. The girl asked frustratedly if it could be that the results were worse because of her presence. The hero answered in the negative and that it was usually the case. He said that besides he was here all alone and it was great fun, along with Livia to sort out the gacha. She said with a smile that she was glad then too. Cross turned to her. The girl did not answer. She fell asleep in his lap. Livia had always been so collected in her role as chief, and since Cross had arrived, she had begun to look like a child of her age. He thought that maybe she had played gacha and was tired and said then let her rest by putting her to bed. It was night. A scream was heard. Orpheus's team met the others. The werewolf asked to wait and asked if they were here to make an alliance. Their leader said not to compare him to this wolf imposter. He said that he might be offering an alliance, but his only condition was that they would be enslaved by him. He menacingly told them to choose whether to be his slaves or die on the spot. Cross said that probably this sign is a poiken snake, and quite large. To prepare for the battle with the fighting wolves in the north, they decided to gather a gacha point in the northern area. Cross asked Orpheus if they had reached the territory of the northern wolves yet. The latter answered in the negative and asked him not to worry about it. The hero asked if there were any villages nearby that were not owned by werewolves and said that perhaps they could form an alliance. Orpheus said that a village was something to think about. He said he thought there was a slime tribe. A huge snake was chasing the slime. It had already opened its mouth wide. Orpheus, swinging his sword, jumped up with a shout. He stuck his knife into the snake. He shouted at it to receive. The snake was still a step away from capturing the slime in its mouth. Livia aimed at the snake with a shout. She thrust her sword up to the hilt into its head. Blood spurted. It wriggled in pain and then fell dead. Livia asked the slime if she was all right. She answered in the affirmative and thanked her. Cross turned to her frustratedly. A girl emerged from the slime. He asked if she was slime. The girl answered in the affirmative and asked about him. The hero said he was human but solves problems in the nearest goblin village. Livia said that she is one of the goblin queens. She pointed at Orpheus and said that there's more. The girl was very frightened. She screamed and asked if they were the same werewolves. The one asked her to wait, but Slime yelled that he wanted to kill them. Slime said that the tribe of wolves who had offered them an alliance had tried to weave them together from the beginning, and many of their people had died. Villages had been burned to the ground, and now they were in hiding. Orpheus said it was all his fault, and if he had the strength. Cross thought for a moment. He asked the Slicey to do him a favor, and said he wanted them to arrange an alliance with them. Tha hesitated for a moment. She agreed and said she would escort them to the village, and that they didn't seem to be the worst guys. She said that whether they got out of the village alive or not was up to their chief. Orpheus apologized to Cross and said that it was his fault that the slime hated him. The latter asked if it was true that it was not his fault. He said it was more important to think about the future than to dwell on the past, which he could not change. He asked if there was a village in one of those caves. Slime answered in the negative, and that the village was just ahead. She said that this cave was full of layers and led to several exits, and was a good place to hide in case they were being followed. The hero thought he would have to work hard to catch them off guard. A light could be seen at the end of the cave. They stepped outside. Slime said that this was their village. She said that rather, it was a big swamp. There were slimes sitting on the branches of the trees. They looked out at the heroes. They did not understand what was happening. They said they saw humans, demons, goblin subhumans. Suddenly one of them said he thought it was a werewolf, that it was definitely a werewolf. They shouted get out of here, asked to kill them, that they couldn't let them know they were here. They repeated the call to kill. The girl told them to calm down. She stood in front of the heroes. She asked who he was, the man. She said, just to let them know they were not welcome here. She said that as far as saving their people was concerned, she, for her part, thanked them. She said that a man who had been banished from the upper world and had a desire to unite non-humans and demons and asked what he wanted. Cross replied that he wanted an alliance, that as long as the wolves of the north were a threat to them, he thought they should unite, and asked if Orpheus said that he knew they were worried that there were werewolves in their camp, but he would never hurt a troop of civilians and he was sure they could help them. The girl replied that she knew why they hated werewolves. She said that in addition, they hate humans. Cross was surprised and asked again. She asked if he was from the upper world and if he had ever heard of Aquafield. He answered in the affirmative and said that he had heard a lot about it because it was in the neighborhood, that the waterways across the country were stable year-round, and it was a major logistics center, and on the face of it, it was a beautiful and idealistic place. The girl said that this utopia was created by using them, the slimes, as slaves, that on stormy days all the slimes worked together to control the flooding of the waterways, and some of them had to do terrible things. She said that they had lived as willless slaves, but were becoming more and more self-aware, and it was natural that they decided to run away. She asked if he envisioned the manner in which they escaped. Cross asked if they had a kind of transitional magic circle in the country. The girl replied that not at all. She said they had fallen into the river. The hero was surprised. She said they had no idea where they might go, and hiding from the gaze of the wardens, she ran down the river and fell into a great waterfall, and the next thing she remembered was being thrown ashore down there. She asked if that was the irony. The girl said that she thought she could forget everything where there were no people, but her body had taken the form of a subhuman. Oni touched her face. The girl said that she had told them everything she shouldn't have, and asked if they now understood why they hated humans. Cross replied that she could hate him all she wanted, but when the wolves of the north invaded, they would treat them as badly as they did then, or even worse. The girl said that they were wrong. She said that they had already been tricked, but if they tried their best, they wouldn't lose, that they had low resistance to magic and could only use physical attacks. Partly that would be an advantage. Cross thought about the fact that if they were more serious, their enemies wouldn't be so strong she might not express it. But he could definitely tell that was what she was thinking. He asked if that meant she didn't want to form an alliance with them. Ta replied that she had no intention of forming an alliance, that she didn't want to add to her problems by getting involved, that they would solve their own problem with the wolves, so suggested that they stay out of each other's way. The hero thought, so that means they are neutral. He said okay, and he understood them. He said he was Cross, and the girl said she was Sufi. They shook hands. In the village, the logs were joined together. The werewolf girl doing the construction wondered if it was a wall. Cross told her that he would like something sturdy, preferably made of stone, but she didn't have the right skills, and he needed something with sharp ends, like here. Ta replied that she understood. He said he could also use a tower tall enough to look far away from. The girl replied that she would try. She asked if that meant the war was about to start. The hero said that it was not certain yet, but one should still be ready, so he asked to get to work. Everyone set to work. Cross addressed them. He said that those of them who were highly dexterous would take turns looking after the slime village, that the slime village was in greater danger of attack than they were, and he knew that they had promised not to interfere with each other, but he did not want any more casualties. All agreed. The hero said they also needed to forge new weapons and told the goblins skilled in the art of forging to get to work. He shouted, suggesting that they get to work. All cheerfully agreed. Cross said he would go and help with the fortifications for now. Orpheus turned to him. He said he needed Cross to study with him. Livia looked at them in surprise. Those were fighting on swords. Orpheus was defeated. He asked again. The hero told Orpheus that if he hurried, he would never learn. Cross said that after a short break, they would continue. The werewolf said that he had given him a magical name, and he felt that his statuses were greatly enhanced. But he remembered his brother. He said he would never forget the way his brother looked at him after he killed their father, that he shouldn't be like his brother. He said he couldn't beat him. Cross thought for a moment. An idea came to him. He asked if the two of them were trained in any kind of swordsmanship. Orpheus answered in the negative, and added that although he was learning to use a sword for self-defense, Livia said that neither had what they called fencing. Cross asked Orpheus if he noticed anything about their duels. The latter replied that it seemed that Cross had a certain mobility. The hero agreed and said it was fencing. He said he combined practical skills with magical skills. He said that, for example, he uses fire magic to revitalize his body and attack speed. Orpheus asked in surprise if he could even do that. Thoth said that in addition, the water sword can anticipate movements against a person like flowing water and finish him off with a single blow. Livia said in shock that reading the opponent's movements in advance was amazing. Cross said that usually for all 4 attributes, you have to learn fencing and they don't have much time, so he suggested that they focus on the styles they are good at for now. Livia agreed. The hero turned to Orpheus. The latter said he wasn't sure if he could do it. He said he had always had trouble with magic, so he had fought using only strength so far, and he might not be able to live up to Cross's expectations. He cried out that still, he wanted to stop his brother's atrocities and avenge his father and his friends, and there was nothing wrong with his desire. He turned to Cross and asked him to teach him swordsmanship. The one told Orpheus not to worry and that he would become the greatest of all werewolves. At this time in the Backhurst manor, in the upper world, Duke Backhurst cried out in shock. He shouted out asking if Albert had really been kidnapped by goblins from the lower world. Brother Cross said it was, and according to the story of the knight who escaped, Albert's clothes were stripped off and his feet were smashed with stones. Then he was dragged away deep into the forest. His father could not believe it and his whole body trembled. His mouth was foaming. Cross's brother was worried about his father. He shouted to him to calm down and come to his senses. Leon, the 4th son of the Backhurst house, came in to see them. He said that Albert had told him that he had a secret plan, and now this is what it had come to, and together with Cross they had become an embarrassment to House Backhurst. He said he had heard that he had gone down with just his knights, and it must have looked pretty funny to see a bunch of amateurs from the lower ranks galloping down with guns drawn. He asked if he wasn't right. He turned to the maid Marnis. She replied that Lord Leon Backhurst was right. The girl smiled. Suddenly, Leon slapped her with all his might. She remained silent. He asked how long she intended to remain in human form. She apologized to him. The girl's appearance changed, and she had ears and a tail. Leon said she was a fox, and he asked her not to take human form when she was alone with him, and if she did so again, he would kill her. Marnis asked for forgiveness. He said okay and asked if the stones were ready. The fox answered in the affirmative and said she had them. She said that they temporarily amplify the magic in his body, and they are very powerful magic stones. Leon took one in his hands. She said that magic stones also have the effect of neutralizing harmful elements from the lower realms. She said that she was sure they would fulfill Leon's expectations. He asked her how much she remembered about the cross. Marnis said that Cross was his brother. She believed, and with all due respect, she knew nothing else. Leon thought about the fact that it seems that even Lissa, who has a wealth of magical knowledge, can't resist the slave collar, and she used to be Cross's maid. So he was afraid that she would try to do something strange, and she thinks his fears were unfounded. He said he would go tomorrow and bring Cross back home, and for her to make sure everything was ready. The girl agreed. She said that when he came back, she hoped he would be the head of this house. Leon yelled for her to shut up, that he didn't need her anymore, and for her to disappear. Marnis apologized and walked out. Leon was angry. He was thinking about becoming head, and that this was just the result. He shouted that he would wait for the cross, and that the humiliation he had suffered then, he would repay it 1,000-fold. At the academy, the students were discussing that Master Leon of House Backhurst was going to have a mock battle with Cross. They discussed that if Cross's brother is the most powerful man in chivalry, he must be even more powerful, suggested that it should begin. All the disciples were stunned with shock. They were discussing that Master Leon had lost, that maybe he was in bad shape. The guy was asked to stop, for Leon could hear him. They discussed that Leon just wasn't good enough. A gate was erected in the lower world. Cross said good, and that it was enough for today. The werewolf said that he was sweating more than usual today. Another replied that he wasn't the only one. Cross turned to Orpheus. He said that his fire sword style was becoming more and more accurate and asked if. The one replied that no, not yet. He said that the catastrophic energy that his brother was releasing, and if there was even the slightest gap, he would be consumed in one fell swoop. The hero said it was a little late to ask that, but asked what his brother's goal was. Was it to conquer the entire region? Orpheus replied that perhaps to confront the subhumans not to the north, and that the farther north one went, the stronger the demons and subhumans. He said that the ways of his brother made him follow because of the threat of violence or fear. He said that some werewolves have betrayed him, but he is sure that most of them fear his brother and follow him because they have no choice. Cross replied that he sees. He said that he would help them if he could. Orpheus was surprised. The hero asked what was wrong. The man replied that he thought the cross was not like that. The hero asked if that was true. Orpheus looked up into the sky. He said that when he was young, his brother was kind and strong. The cross was surprised. He asked if this was true. The werewolf answered in the affirmative and said that he had been a good brother. The hero thought that was surprising. Orpheus said he didn't know exactly when he went mad, and maybe it all happened too fast and many times. Cross said that maybe if they could figure out the cause, they could stop all this fighting. The werewolf replied that maybe they could start living again. Cross interjected. Orpheus said nothing and asked him to forget about it. He said that now they must gain strength for the events ahead. The hero turned to Orpheus. Suddenly, he noticed Goblin and Rufuna. Goblina grabbed him by the hair. He screamed that he was in pain. Rufuna was running around him. He asked what they were doing and asked them not to pull his hair. Orpheus suggested that maybe they wanted him to play with them. Cross was surprised. He asked if that was true. The goblin shouted in agreement. The hero said that was right. He had been practicing so much lately that he hadn't been able to pay attention to them at all. He apologized to them and said that he would make it up to them. The demons cheerfully responded. Orpheus said that he then went. Cross agreed. He stared at his footsteps. He thought about the fact that he didn't know if he and his brother would get a second chance, or if they would fix all of this. He thought that he would definitely prefer it to be possible, but what if they couldn't? He thought that if they couldn't reason with him, Orpheus should stop him. At the dean's office, Cross asked why he was the only one who had failed the knighthood exam. The dean said that he heard that he bribed the students to lose. Hero yelled that he did nothing of the sort and asked what he was talking about. The dean said he was sorry about that, but he would be punished accordingly. Cross asked to listen to him. Suddenly, Bart slapped him hard in the face. The brothers said that Cross was a disgrace to the house of Backhurst, asking if this was how he repaid them for everything. The man said he had done nothing. He looked up. Around the corner, he saw Brother Leon smiling. The hero wondered if they brothers could start over, thought he didn't think it was possible. The brothers hated each other and beat the crap out of each other, and that was the way of the world. Someone was calling him. He heard his name and woke up. Livia was in front of him. She asked if he was okay and said he didn't look well. The one said that he was fine, that he had just had a strange dream. The girl replied that it was understandable. He thought about the fact that he could still see them, and it would take him a while to come to his senses. Livia said something had happened. He interjected. A werewolf, all battered, was being led under his arm and asked to hold on. One of the werewolves yelled for someone to bring potions. Cross came to them and asked what it was. The werewolf said that their village used to have 3 fighting wolves from the north, that they messed up and they found them, that he was sorry. Everyone was shocked. The werewolf asked another how they managed to come back alive. The one replied that it was because of their daily training. Cross thanked them for their report and asked Orpheus if he could have a word. The Thoth asked in surprise if they had missed on purpose. The hero replied that they were following him to figure out their base. He used his sensibility. His gaze traveled beyond the trees. Cross said that there they were, the 3 wolves, that it was definitely them. He suggested that we go and intercept them. All agreed. The 3 wolves were rushing forward with great speed. The ground began to crack. The werewolves were puzzled. They asked why the hell the earth had risen so suddenly. Orpheus appeared behind them. He turned to the 3 and said that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. He apologized and said that they could not let them leave. One of the trio chuckled. He asked if it was the king's younger brother, Orpheus. He asked how he was the chair of the leader of the inveterate losers. Cross said he was the head of the organization in which Orpheus now worked, and if he had anything to say, let him say it. The werewolves laughed and said, "Wow, a loser has been turned into a pet dog." The hero got angry. Orpheus told him and Livia to listen to him. Cross interrogated him. The one said that a terrible aura emanated from the three of them. He said they had exactly the same as his brother. He said he had a very bad feeling and asked to be vigilant. Cross replied that he would be on guard. The werewolves said that they had no need to run away from an idiot like them, that they would cut off his head right here and now, after which they would bring it to the true king. One of them suggested just using the thing and asked if it was good. The other, holding something in his hands, said he was in complete agreement. Orpheus said in surprise that it couldn't be. He said it was a magic stone. The werewolf threw it into his mouth. He said that now he could become the most powerful werewolf, just like a king. He laughed loudly and his body began to change. He roared loudly. Cross and Livia looked at it in surprise. They asked what was going on. The werewolves' faces turned wolfish. They growled. Cross asked in shock what was wrong with them. One of the werewolves rushed forward. The hero shouted that they were coming. Livia dodged his attack in a leap. She yelled for him to receive and threw a punch herself. She was surprised. His wound was healing instantly. The werewolf attacked Cross, but he was able to hold him off with his sword. Orpheus shouted to the hero that they were unusually strengthened by the magic stone. The man replied that it was understandable. Orpheus said not to fall victim to their pace. He shouted to Livia to remember her normal training. The Thoth agreed. The werewolf aimed at her in a leap. The girl concentrated. She used her water blade and made a stab. She hit the wolf's stomach with her sword. Its defense was broken. Her sword went right through. Everything was covered in blood. She yelled for the others to target the magic stone inside their bodies, and that if destroyed, they would get out of control. Cross replied that fine, and they would do the same. Orpheus also agreed. All the werewolves were defeated, and the magic stones inside them were broken. Cross said that they had succeeded in destroying them, but if they didn't return, they would notice from the base that something was wrong, and they might arrive to investigate the area in the near future. Orpheus remained silent. The hero asked if he was okay. The man replied positively, and that these guys knew no mercy. He said that actually, one day, he was approached by a stranger about a deal on a magic stone. Cross was surprised. Orpheus said he didn't recognize the seller's face, but he called himself a vampire. Livia said that vampires and foxes have magic, that they can also make various magical tools. Orpheus said that his father was a man of chivalry and hated magic tools, which is why they rejected it, that he had no idea that he was selling magic stones to his brother behind his back. He said that now they were no longer human. They were demons, and it was insane to let the younger generation wear such a thing. Cross told everyone in the village what he meant by that. He said they had killed the Northmen nearby, but they could also expand their search area, so he asked them to be on guard and keep practicing. All agreed. The hero thought about keeping quiet about the magic stone for now, and if they scared them off it would have the opposite effect. But with their current strength, the worst that could happen was that they would be wiped out. Cross said he was going to the slime village. Orpheus was surprised. He asked if the alliance was still on topic. The hero said it was one thing, but first they needed to share information about the magic stone. Orpheus said that Sufi said that they are weak against it, and of course magic stones and magic tools can be a threat to the slime. Cross said Orpheus is right, and they should tell them in advance, and maybe they will change their point of view. Orpheus asked if he could go with them. The hero declined and said that he actually had a meeting scheduled for today. Rufuna barked. He said that he'd been so busy lately with training and stuff that Goblina had pouted, and today the three of them were supposed to explore the forest for the first time in a long time. He told Rufuna that it wasn't exactly what they had planned, but they were going out now. He asked where Goblina was. He asked if she was still in a bad mood and said that they didn't have much time and he had no choice but to use his summoning skill here. Rufuna shook her head in disagreement. Cross asked if it was necessary. Rufuna barked. The hero asked if he should follow the scent and find him. Rufuna said yes. Orpheus did not understand how he understood her. Cross said he was concerned about the movements of the fighting wolves from the north, and he told Goblina to report to him as soon as she detected any danger. He said he would give potions just in case. He put the potions on Rufune's collar. He asked her to take him to the goblin. She agreed. In the meantime, Goblina was picking flowers and weaving a wreath from them. She imagined putting it on Cross, and the latter would praise her. Suddenly, someone pulled her arm toward her. Creeping up, Leon grabbed her by the hair and lifted her up. He asked if she was the goblin woman who had beaten Albert. Cross asked if Goblina's scent was gone. Rufuna barked. He asked if the smell was nothing. She said yes. The hero thought about how strange it was that Rufuna's sense of smell must be pretty well developed. He thought that again, Goblina has the name of a demon, so how could Rufuna's nose work for her? Cross had told her that he was fine, and it just so happened that her nose wasn't working today. He suggested just going to the place where she last smelled her. Leon held Goblina's head. He said it was amazing they hadn't been seen yet. He said that their entire area was already blocked by smoke from the guides of the lower realm. He told the goblin that if she didn't want her skull crushed, she should tell him if she recognized any of the circled faces. That one was in a lot of pain. Leon said that she seemed to have great status for a goblin and asked if she could at least say if she knew anyone here. He showed a picture of the Backhurst family with Cross circled on it. The goblin recognized it. Leon looked at her. She abruptly grabbed his arm, trying to get out. He asked what she was doing. He said it was useless and she couldn't hurt him now, not even by a hair. He dug his hands into her skull. She screamed in pain. Leon told her to answer and asked her if she wanted to lose her head. Goblina was crying. She felt sick. She, trembling, continued to hold his hand. Leon was tense. He tossed her into the flowers. The knight asked if he was all right. The one answered in the affirmative and said she wouldn't have been able to tell him anything anyway. He turned to her and started saying something about demons. The goblin was drinking a potion at this time. The knights noticed the potion and shouted, asking where she had hidden it. Goblina finished her drink and with a shout, rushed to attack Leon. She was stopped by the knight with his fist and told that he would not let her touch Master Leon. She fell to the ground. There was blood coming out of her mouth, and she lay curled up in a ball. Leon told the knights that the goblin with the potion was a sight to behold, and ordered them to find out from her where the cross was. Those said that the torture knights who made all the creatures in the upper realm obedient and submissive would be able to find out where the cross was. The goblin looked at them. At this time in the forest, Cross was shouting to her, asking where she was. There was only silence in response. The hero thought what was going on was that it wasn't just Rufuna's sense of smell, but he couldn't believe that he could no longer use the detection technique or summoning. He said that the search didn't work like the wolves they defeated this morning and the situation is constantly changing, but he should have been more vigilant. Cross wondered what he should do. Suddenly he calmed down. Rufuna came up to him and hugged him. He turned to her. He said that it was because of her that he had calmed down, and it was at times like this that he needed to remain calm. He said he could see the light in her eyes. Suddenly, he saw that everything around Rufuna was glowing. He asked what kind of light was coming from her. He used the appraisal skill and was very surprised. He didn't realize what it was. At this time, the flowers were covered in blood. Leon asked the knights what they were stuck calling idiots. Those apologized and said she was more stubborn than they thought. He told them to look for the cross and that he would be waiting here. They obeyed. A potion flew through the air. Leon turned around. Behind his back, the goblin had risen. All battered, she glared at him with anger. Using magic, he dealt her several blows. Goblina collapsed in blood again. Leon shouted that enough was enough. He shouted about this gobliness and the knights he had brought here, about this fox and the family of Backhurst and Cross. He yelled why they couldn't all do what he wanted and asked them to stop annoying him. Leon yelled that the next time they tried to trick him or fail to live up to expectations, he would kill that fox and all their families. The knights fearfully begged for forgiveness. Flower petals began to rise into the air. They formed a whirlwind in which Goblina was. The petals surrounded her wounds, making those wounds disappear. The knight shouted that because there was a wound, she was a goblin with incredible healing abilities. Leon called them fools and said it was a skill. He thought it was likely she was getting a lot of life force from the environment. He wondered if she possessed the herbalist skill, but decided she did not, that unlike humans and subhumans, demons should only have skills unique to them. He thought that if that was the case, then it meant that she possessed a completely rare skill. The man in the black robe said that it was impossible, that how could she break through that smoke and use the skill? Suddenly, his body appeared to be chopped into 2 pieces. He fell to the ground. The second person had no time to realize what was happening before the same thing suddenly happened to him. Rufuna appeared in front of them. The knight noticed the wolf and asked if it was the one that killed them. The other asked how the demon got into that smoke. Leon thought about this wolf and that it couldn't be. A goblin in an aura of light rose into the sky. The knights were shocked. They didn't realize what this sudden glow was. Leon was surprised. He realized that it was a demon evolution technique. The goblin light illuminated everything around. There were flower petals all around her. She was alive and well, and in addition, externally changed. The knight laughed and shouted that of course he didn't understand what had just happened, but just when he thought he hadn't tortured her enough. Suddenly he cried out in pain. Goblina thrust her foot into his face. She lifted her foot and in one motion ripped his head off. The other knight saw this. He screamed, asking how it had happened, that he had only the other day gotten married. He screamed how could she do this to him. The knight closed his helmet and laughed. He yelled that now she could no longer hurt him. The goblin was right in front of him, breaking the ground beneath her. She touched him with her hand. He didn't realize what was happening. She delivered an attack that pierced his armor. The knight was covered in blood. He had fallen dead. Leon thought she let the blow penetrate and it ruined his armor. Goblina turned away as suddenly someone called out to her. She turned around and was very surprised. It was Cross, and she threw herself into his arms. He said it was good that she was all right. He thought about how the surrounding plants were medicinal herbs. He thought it was good that he could appreciate them, and so this smoke had robbed Rufun of his sense of smell. The hero thought about the fact that he was able to get through the smoke because of Rufuna's unique skills and sense of smell that he got through evolution. And then there is a reason why his summoning and detection technique worked. Leon told Cross that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. The latter turned around. He saw Leon. The latter was out of his mind with anger. The hero asked if he had come to bring him back as Albert. The one asked again about Albert and said that he thought his father had said that Cross was sniffing around with the goblins. The hero said that if the one was so knowledgeable, he knew he wasn't coming back, and he was thinking of letting him go so he could go home in one piece. He, tensing his fist, said that. However, he had something to say to him. Cross said that they had exhausted themselves over the goblin, and asked him not to think that he would now be able to return to the upper world unharmed. Leon was silent. He abruptly began to laugh very loudly. He unbuttoned his clothes. Inside his chest was a stone embedded. Cross was surprised. He thought that this was what he understood, the brotherly spirit, that he had not the slightest desire to do anything for those bastards up there. Leon told Cross that he had come here to kill him. Cross and Leon stood opposite each other. The hero thought that he knew so, and so knew that this magic stone was sabotaging his skills. He asked his brother where he had gotten the magic stone, adding that he thought they were hard to find in the upper world. Leon replied that the stone had been created for him by Cross's old maid, Marunas. The one was puzzled. He thought of Marunas, a subhuman vixen, and he thought she kept her true identity a secret from everyone but him. Leon asked what had happened to him, and if he was shocked that his own maid had been taken from him. The hero thought that now was not the time to find out about Marunas. He thought about the magic stone being assimilated to his flesh, but Leon still retained his ego, and whether he would go mad like the wolves this morning. He decided to see what they could find out. He said that it was true that foxes could make magical artifacts, but he had heard that the magic stone had some terrible side effects. Leon laughed and shouted, asking if Cross still resented having his maid taken away from him. He said that Cross was the only one in the upper world who was so incompetent to trust subhumans that they first gave her to sinners and slaves and then got rid of her. The hero thought he had to resort to trickery. Leon said that although it was unpleasant for him to swallow what was left behind, he said it was all thanks to Cross and threw himself in his direction. He attacked the hero in the stomach with a scream. He was thrown back a little. Leon shouted to him to look at it, that all this luxury and power, it was all for revenge against him. He shouted that the humiliation he had experienced in the upper world would be nothing compared to his. He aimed his fist at Cross, but the latter managed to repel the attack with his sword. His brother shouted for him to receive and swinging his fist tried to hit him time after time. Eventually, the hero fell on his back. Leon almost reached him, but Cross managed to jump up and kick him. The hero aimed at his brother in a leap with a scream. The man blocked the blow with his hand as if he didn't care. Cross thought he had strengthened himself. Thoth kicked him hard. Cross turned to Leon and said that he did not know the true nature of the magic stones. Leon was puzzled. The hero said that skills are a power given by the Almighty God, but the demon stone is nothing more than a miracle created by humans and subhumans. Leon laughed loudly and shouted that he was lecturing him as soon as he realized he could not win and offered then to prove his divine power. Cross replied that if the latter insisted. He struck him in the face with all his might with his fist. Blood spurted from Leon's mouth and nose. He was surprised. The hero continued to keep his hand on his face. He made several more strokes with his hand all over his body. Leon staggered, almost falling backwards. The hero said that he used a skill that increases physical stats, that it was the most common among his skills. Leon laughed and told him to try something stronger. He shouted that it didn't work at all, laughing and shouting that this is how God's power is. He shouted that it was his turn and swung his arms. He waved his arms and used a wind cutter. Against him, Cross used an oblique attack. The oblique attack managed to win. Leon was shocked. His clothes and skin were shredded. He looked at Cross. The latter asked if he remembered. He asked if Leon remembered the last time he challenged him to a duel and asked if he had talked about revenge that day. The brother asked if he meant he had forgotten. He shouted that Cross must be joking, asked if he thought the whole spectrum of humiliation was only related to that day. The hero remained silent. Leon yelled that he was always like this, always looked down on him, stole everything from him. He continued to yell. He screamed that he would never forgive him, that he would execute him right here and now. He aimed his attack. He used a tornado. The hero didn't expect that his brother could create such powerful wind magic. He decided that just as he thought, the effect of the magic stone was terrifying. He thought that with its increased mass and rotational speed, its thrust is low, so it would be easier to dodge. From behind, someone reached for the cross. The knight grabbed it. The hero realized it was a headless knight and didn't understand what was happening. Leon saw that. He laughed and shouted that it was good for the knight to keep it up. The tornado almost caught up with Cross. Suddenly, Goblin and Rafuna appeared and helped him dodge. Leon was angry. Goblina pulled the heart out of the knight. She squeezed it in her hand with all her might. Cross thanked them. He told them both that it was a great job. The demons cheered. The hero thought that meant the knights also had magic stones. He thought about how it was only after his insides were destroyed that he stopped moving, so as long as his heart was intact, the magic stone could control him. Leon was angry. Cross asked him if he now understood what he was saying. He said that the headless corpse had helped him, but the magic stone he had absorbed was a dangerous thing. Thoth fearfully touched the stone. Cross told him to go back to the upper world while he still had his mind. He said he couldn't help him, but she could. Leon yelled for him to shut up. He got the other stones. The hero realized he had even more stones. Leon yelled that he couldn't lose anymore. He crammed all the stones into his mouth at once. Hero yelled that he was an idiot and asked him to spit them out. His brother laughed loudly. Cross thought what an ominous and frightening feeling it was. Leon continued to laugh. His face began to change. He shouted that he could feel the magic power surging within him. Suddenly blood spurted from his ears, nose, mouth, head. He began to fall. Leon fell on his back. Cross looked on in bewilderment. He assumed that the body could no longer resist the magic stone. He said that at this speed it might get out of control, that they should quickly stop the heart. Cross looked sadly at his brother. He asked if it wasn't true that hatred could drive a person to such a state. Goblin and Rufuna looked at him. The hero used the water sword style and said goodbye to Leon. He aimed his sword straight at his chest, but a ray of light suddenly appeared. The sword fell out of his hand and something strange appeared in front of him. The goblin and Rufuna were frightened for him and screamed. The wounded Cross flew back. Leon stood up. He began to scream. As he stood up, wings appeared behind his back. He increased in size. He had horns, hooves, and long fingernails. He screamed. Cross saw the goblin and Rufuna. He realized he could hear nothing. His face was covered in blood. Cross's demons were trying to get him to stand up. The hero thought about the fact that if Leon attacked, he wouldn't be able to use his skills. Mommy told little Leon that after a while he would have a little brother or sister. She said that then he would be a good friend to them. The boy answered her that he loved her. His hair was fluttering in the wind. He looked for his mom and asked where she was. Now in his changed appearance, Leon was screaming for his mom. He was yelling loudly and asking where the cross was. There were trails of blood on the ground leading into the cave. There, on the ground, lay a potion that had been drunk. The goblin was crying. Cross had his arm and part of his torso torn off along with it. Rufuna licked his cheek. Goblina turned to him. She tearfully took hold of his cheek. She was in despair. She started screaming and clutching Cross's body. Rufuna was confused. The hero was still lying the same way. The goblin was trembling. She burst into tears very loudly. The wolf's tears were dripping. Suddenly, the emergency program started loading. An emergency maintenance notice appeared in front of the demons. It said that there was a serious error in the wearer's physical body, that the emergency maintenance would begin in 5 seconds. The demons were puzzled. They said that the maintenance would transfer a large amount of life energy to the user, and so it was recommended to start it when there was enough life energy. There was a countdown. Said that in addition, the accuracy of this maintenance would depend on the skill level of the demonic skill, that one should check the log screen after completing the maintenance for details. The countdown had reached 1. The emergency maintenance was said to be starting. Light began to emanate from the cross. Goblin and Rufuna were aggressively. A large flying ball appeared in the air. The demon screamed while looking up. There was a repeated transfusion of the lost blood. The hero's arm was recovering. The repair of the damaged area was underway. Cross's face became alive again. An emergency maintenance sign appeared. Said that the emergency maintenance had been completed and thanked them for their use. Goblin and Rufuna were puzzled. Suddenly, Cross coughed. They rushed to him. The hero used light magic. A brightly glowing ball of light appeared above. Cross said they were the guys who saved him and asked if. He turned to Goblin and Rufuna with a smile. He thanked them. Goblina's tears came out again. They embraced the hero. The one said, pointing to his hand, that it was amazing that there were no marks, that there was no way to even tell if someone had attacked him. He asked what happened to Leon and said that it seemed like he was going to finish him off. The demons replied. Cross said that the one was obviously cursed and the magic stone blocked the probing technique. Suddenly heard sounds from above. He saw Leon in front of the grave. The hero didn't realize what was happening. His older brother at the grave told his mom that it was him. Cross thought it was Leon's memories. The man told his mom that as soon as Cross disappeared, his brothers started attacking him. The hero thought that the memories were coming directly into his brain because of the flash of the magic stone. Leon had a bouquet in his hands. He told his mom that as soon as Cross was born, she died, that their family was cursed. He said that there was no way the brothers could get along, for as long as Cross lived, they would be haunted by misfortune. He asked his mother to watch over them in heaven. He said he would avenge the humiliation she had suffered at his hands, that he would get even with him for her death. The hero freed himself from Leon's memories. He said that the demon stone blocked his abilities, but not his, that memories of his other side flooded his head, no questions asked. The goblin turned to him. He asked if it was already a crime to be alive. Cross said he had heard it all before and was sick of hearing it. He turned to the demons, apologized to them, and said they would have to stick with his idiot brother a little longer. He shouted that the three of them would stop him. Goblin and Rufuna agreed. At this time, with the help of the blood trail, Leon found the cave they were in. He hit the rocks with all his might with his fist. He began to collapse the cave, asking Cross where he was. The man shouted that he was here. Leon turned around. He didn't see the hero and kept asking where he was. Rufuna appeared in front of him. Leon yelled, asking where Cross was. He shouted the hero's name and reached out his hand, almost grabbing the wolf. Rufuna howled loudly with all her might. Leon was puzzled. He stepped back. Cross shouted to the goblina that now. The one rushed forward. Cross thought about Rufuna's unique skill temporarily imprisoning the target in a golden bridle. He told Leon that it was over. He aimed his fist at his brother with a shout. Goblina was also ready to attack. Cross leapt and struck straight at the magic stone. The stones, breaking, found themselves free. Leon's chest spurted blood. His body, lying on the ground, began to disappear. Cross looked on. He thought about the fact that reacting to the huge flow of magical power was causing the body to astralize, and even his skills could no longer stop it. He turned to Leon. The hero said that he had already severed all ties with the world above, that he didn't care what happened to him now. He fell silent. Cross said he just felt sorry for his mother and regretted it. A black dot was visible to Leon from above. As it got closer, it was clear that it was someone flying. Leon was shocked. It was his mom flying on white wings. He turned to her. Cross thought his mom had come for Leon. He laughed and said that at last. He said that the earliest he had ever met her. He said that from that moment on forever they would be together. Leon dissolved into the glow around him. Cross and his friends watched. The hero looked off into the distance. He suggested that Goblina and Rufuna go. The two agreed. A white feather flew lonely in the air. At this time, in the upper world, in the Backhurst manor, a maid turned to Mary and asked her to take care of that window. The maid agreed to do so. The maid said she wondered if Master Leon had returned home. She said it was terrible that the head of the family was losing his children one by one. The fox listened attentively. Suddenly, something fell on the floor. The girl reached out and picked up the collar that had come off her. The maids asked her if something was wrong. The one answered in the negative. She said she had unburnable garbage, so she would go and throw it away. The maid replied okay, asked her to deal with it. The fox realized that as planned, Leon had died there. She reincarnated in the guise of the fox. The girl told now Master Cross to wait for her, and she would come to him. Orpheus asked Cross what he meant. He said that he was about the Gacha, and that he had, after all, gone to the village of the Slug tribe and asked if that was the case. The hero answered in the negative and that it was still in process. He turned his attention to Livia. She was peering out from behind a house. He turned to her and asked her what was wrong. She replied that it was terrible and that she wanted to be of use to him. He asked Orpheus if he had told Livia. The werewolf replied that he had. However, apparently she wanted him to tell her personally. Cross apologized and said he was in a hurry. The girl said resentfully that she didn't know anything. He was puzzled. She asked what was. Cross said with a smile that he had never seen her angry before and it was something new. The girl was embarrassed. She shouted that he couldn't flatter her like that, and she wouldn't listen to him. He said he was not flattering her. Livia saw the goblin girl. She shouted asking how it happened, and if Cross thought that she had changed. He replied that it was all because of evolution. Livia was surprised and congratulated them. She asked what the outfit was all about though. The hero replied that he made the outfit using tailoring techniques, and he was trying to make it from a sample outfit from a book he read in the library of the night school. He said he thought he had done pretty well. Livia agreed that it was very nice and then screamed with excuses. She said she was about Goblina growing up, and maybe she should have gotten a little taller. Thoth started jumping. Cross said that jumping didn't make her taller. Goblina's chest was jumping with her. Livia screamed that Cross was an idiot and ran away. Thoth yelled to her, not realizing what was wrong. He said that she was gone. Orpheus asked what they should do now and if he wanted to mess around without Livia. The hero replied that he would wait and that she was probably just kidding. Orpheus agreed. He asked why the man wouldn't tell him what happened in the slime village. Cross agreed and began. Sufi interjected about vampires with wolves. The hero said that they were. He said that 3 wolves came to the village this morning and they all had magic stones. He said that he had not told them about it, but Orpheus, who used to be by his side, is the brother of the werewolf king Velda, that last year Orpheus was offered a magic stone by a vampire, but he refused. But then his brother made a deal with them. Cross said that vampires are skilled in making magic tools as well as magic stones, that it would be very difficult to solve the problem in the future if they operated only on their own, and asked if that was true. Sufi thought. She said she understood what he was saying. She said that this would put them at odds with the fighting wolves, and if they did so, they would not be able to face their slain comrades. The girl said she could not make an alliance with them. Cross looked at her. He, getting up, said well he understands she is worried about her tribesmen. He said he was here, and if she needed anything, they would handle everything together. He left. Sufi sat under a tree and pondered. The hero said that they had not made an alliance, but they felt threatened and it was worth it. Orpheus replied that he was sorry. Cross asked why he was apologizing. The werewolf looked sad. He said that the inhabitants of this forest used to treat people who came from the upper world only with some wariness, and there was almost no conflict between the creatures. He said that they, the wolves, had disturbed the local order. Cross thought the man was nervous. He said Orpheus was taking on too much. He said he would be the link between them, and all he had to think about was stopping his brother's outbursts of anger. The werewolf turned to him. Cross said that he thinks about everything around him. He said he knew that Orpheus was the one who deserved to be king of the wolves. The one was perplexed. Livia appeared. The hero said they had been waiting for her. The one shouted at him, asking why he didn't go after her. He blanched. The werewolves were following them. One of them said that Master Orpheus used to be different. Another said he knew they couldn't defeat his brother. Kiba said that he had made up his mind. He said that if they went back to that village now, he was sure they would overwhelm them. He said that it was still much better than sitting here, that he didn't want to see Orpheus like this again. In the upper world, in the refilled house, Ellis was taking a bath. The maid apologized and told her that the head of the house was asking for her. The girl replied that she understood and got out of the water. The maids surrounded her doing her hair and makeup and dressing her. She walked into the room and told her father that it was Ellis. The man told her that he heard she had successfully dealt with the demons. The girl replied that she was being forced everywhere and she was working so hard on all the problems of their country. The father said he had 2 pieces of news for her. He said that first, regarding the Backhurst family, Leon, who was sent to the lower world, has still not returned. He said that the guides of the lower world had searched for him and found the body of his companion, but Leon was nowhere to be found. Ellis thought about Leon and realized that he was the same person who had lost the battle to Cross. Then she warned Leon in advance that Cross would act cunningly. Meanwhile, she was the one who ordered Cross to proceed. She thought about how it was a masterpiece that all the hatred went to Cross. Father said one more thing. There are rumors of unrest in the Missicilian family. He said that rumors that Minu Missicilian might be part of the search party. Ellis was shocked and cried out, interjecting. Her father told her that the king had changed his attitude and prioritized defense in the face of demon attacks, so it was important to build some semblance of a relationship. He said that however he did not think they had sent her without a second thought, that they wanted to ensure success by sending Mina, who was friendly with Cross. Ellie said that in that case, she would go there. Her father disagreed. She screamed what would happen to their situation if something happened to them. Her father told her to think hard about the situation. He said not to let rumors keep them from serving their country. She thought about the fact that she didn't like this girl approaching the cross without her. She remembered Minu saying that Ellis knew nothing about the cross. The girl thought about it. In the village of the wolf tribe in the north, the 3 were told that they now wanted to join his clan. Those agreed. The wolf shouted that their boss would never allow such a thing and for them to stop fooling around. The chief asked Kiba to look up. He said that the other day one of their men went to the village and didn't return. He asked if Kiba knew anything about it. The latter averted his eyes. He remembered the wounded werewolves in the village that Cross said they had gotten rid of the arriving northerners. He replied that he thought their new human leader had done it. Wolf shouted, interjecting, and that Kiba should not torment them by calling him an undersized man. The chief said that rumors had reached him that a very powerful man had appeared in the lower world, but he never thought his brother would be with him. He said that when a noble wolf bows to a mortal, it is no wonder that his men are tired of him. Orpheus' brother said they would receive the three of them in their house. Those rejoiced. He said they could not let them in for free without any proof. The girl carried a tray. On it lay a knife. The wolf said it would be fair if they showed sincerity and asked if. He offered to see what they were willing to do for a place. The three recruits gave their best effort. Kiba thought about what had happened from the beginning. He said he had been ready for it from the beginning. One of the wolves asked the boss if he was sure and said that there was something wrong here. The one asked what it was about. The wolf said that they were up to something and you can't just come to them and join. Verd asked what about it and whether the one thought his gang was unworthy of joining. He said he might not like their routines either. Another wolf shouted that they could quickly put him in his place. Another said that was right, and if anything, they could give him prophylaxis in jail. The one didn't realize what was going on. He thought he should change the subject. He asked the boss if he would take his sword with him this time. The other wolves called him out, calling him an idiot. Verd gave him a serious look. The wolf said it would be great to use it to deal with the slime. Verd hit it sharply with all his might so that it broke through the window. The wolf flew far away from the house. The boss said that at last, peace and quiet. The other wolves thought that one was a fool and it was against the law to talk about swords. They knew that this sword was the only thing Lord Verdine could get his hands on, although he is always in search of power. The boss was told that it was time to leave. The man agreed. He told them to start swallowing the magic stones. Those obeyed. They began to change their appearance with screams. Verdine looked up. He said how beautiful the moon was. He told the wolves to go ahead, that they were beginning their raid. The moon was hiding behind the trees. The villagers were walking through the night forest. Orpheus said that they were almost to the slug village, so he asked them to get ready. Everyone agreed. The werewolves discussed that this was their boss, that Kiba and the others had retreated, but he was still determined. Cross looked at Orpheus. The latter was thinking about something. When he was little, he lost in a battle against his brother. Shouted that at last victory by a wide margin. Orpheus was in poor health. This was observed by his father. Orpheus asked his father who it was. He replied that Kai, Kiba, Ro, from left to right, and that he would now train them. Kiba approached Orpheus and said it was a pleasure to meet him, extending his hand. Toth remained silent. He slapped the boy's hand. He said not to get carried away and asked if the one didn't know who he was. Kiba was surprised. A while later, after the battle, he said he knew who Orpheus was. He said that the one was the weakest and all. His father told Orpheus that he would give him until the next noon, that he had to deal with the three of them. The one asked if it was 3 against 1. The father said that if he failed, he would disown him. The boy was surprised. The father told the 3 that they needed to keep an eye on him. Those agreed to do so. Kiba offered to go and said they didn't have much time. He asked what they would do. Orpheus was very angry. He shouted that he should not take too much and that he would beat the 3 of them to death. Orpheus would lose, and they would eat together, sleep together, and then fight again. Time was running out. Ro, with stick in hand, flew backwards. Orpheus had defeated all 3 of them. They were lying on the ground. He was very surprised looking at his hand. Kiba told him that it was getting stronger here. Orpheus enthusiastically agreed. Orpheus looked into the darkness of the forest. At this time, Kiba and the others were in the cage. The guys yelled for Kiba to hang on, they were working on a potion. Ro said it looks like it won't grow back soon. He said that if they tried to sneak in, they would be quickly exposed. Kiba looked at the hand with the severed finger. He said that they would have to act with these forces, and they would have to try. He said he was willing to give his life for Orpheus, even if it was just a finger or 2. The boys looked at him joyfully. They discussed that nevertheless, so far everything was going according to plan. Kiba said that the first thing they have to do is to sneak into the dungeon, and today most of the guys are out, so there is little security. He said that however there is the main reason why they came here. He said it was the sword that Orpheus was supposed to have. He said it was time to get to work. Kai replied that it was time to put his lock-picking skills to use. Kiba said that with this sword Orpheus would surely be reborn, and they would redeem their master. Everyone agreed. The moon reflected in the water. Verd stood under the moon opposite Sufi. He said he had not told them the date of his visit, but the whole clan was here to welcome him. He asked if she could not resist to see her new master. The girl replied that not at all. She said that wolves are the most fickle creatures on the night of a full moon, and they knew he would attack tonight. She saw that something was wrong with his subordinates and thought that it was clearly an effect of the full moon. She thought it looked like the magic stone was real. Sufi told them to go back, but they would not be their slaves. Verd replied that it was clear and that nothing could be done. He said he would exterminate them, every last one of them. Sufi stood in front of the wolves. She used transformation, slime appeared. Her clothes and body were being modified. The girl said that this village would be free. She raised her hand and pushed away the slime. They sat in the trees watching it. One of the wolves asked what was the matter. Another asked if they had gone away, leaving the leader alone. The wolves saw that there was a swamp right behind it. They yelled that if she got in trouble, she would run into the swamp, that they would not let. The wolves ran toward Sufi. One of the bottoms wanted to hit her in the stomach with his fist, but he passed inside. The wolf was puzzled. His hand began to melt. He screamed in pain. The wolf screamed that his hand was melting, that it was acid. They yelled that it couldn't be, that it was made entirely of acid. They didn't realize where they could have gone wrong. The wolf noticed something. Many eyes watched him from the trees. Slimes began to tumble down, ready for battle. They fell on the wolves, burning them with acid. Those screamed, asking what they were doing. One of the wolves yelled not to panic and that they had magic stones. A long jet went through the 3 wolves. Those were screaming. Sufi was determined. She raised her head as the blood spurted. The wolf said he couldn't believe she had defeated them so easily. The girl thought that they could, that only together and victory would be theirs. She shouted to the slime, offering to digest these werewolves. The wolves were frightened. One said he couldn't believe how acidic everything was. Another asked what they were going to do. Verd thought about what they knew about the magic stone, and that meant only one thing. He thought he didn't know if these guys were acid slugs. Acid slugs should only be in places where strong acid is constantly spewing. He thought that if that was the case, it was probably a skill, but he didn't understand why so many slugs had the same skill. He noticed that from Sufi's foot, slime roots lead to a tree and another slime to a body of water. The girl said that they no longer had a chance and should retreat while they could. Verd smiled. He made a powerful thrust. Sufi was shocked. Slime screamed. The tree was cut down and fell. Verd said she used her skills to purify the acid by pumping water out of the swamp and then sent the acid through a tube from her feet to the slugs in the trees. He asked if she thought she was tricking him. He said that meant all that was needed was to break the chain. The werewolf said that for a slug, the girl was smart enough, but it wouldn't help her. Ty didn't know what to do. He asked if that was all she had and where was the backup plan. Suddenly a guy landed behind him from above. He shouted that Verd was the killer of his friends to get ready to die. Sufi yelled for him to stand. Blood dripped. The werewolf had stabbed the sword through this guy's chest. Sufi tearfully screamed. Verd asked if the guy thought he remembered everyone he killed. He said it was beginning to piss him off, and that for sure, he didn't have to play with them anymore. He yelled to the guys to stab them all. The wolves chased after the slimes. Those were frightened. Sufi begged them to stop. She said she would do anything, he said, asking only not to kill them. The werewolf replied that it was too late. He shouted that it was her own fault, and let her watch her friends die because of her stupid pride. Verd yelled that he wanted to kill them all. Sufi was crying. The wolves spotted someone and asked who was there. Several wolves were scrambled. Cross appeared. Verd was puzzled. Sufi noticed the hero. Cross said it was in the spirit of werewolves to have the full moon on their side, but rely on a magic stone, and asked if it was too against the rules. The girl was delighted to see him. Verd called him a bastard and asked where he came from. Verd said he was her friend. When the brothers were young, Verd asked Orpheus how his scars were after the duel. He replied that they were fine and that he was confident of his recovery. He said that he knew that his brother was the strongest. Verd said he heard Kiba and the others got a trainer. Orpheus shouted that he was no coach. He said his father wouldn't want to coach boys their age. He said that so-and-so was so-and-so, and he was giving them friendly help. The brother replied that clearly. Orpheus said that that one is quite different, that he feels that one is capable of replacing the father. Verd replied that he did not know, and asked if perhaps Orpheus was more suited for it than he. The one shouted that everyone in the village said he was the strongest, and he would be the next chief. The boy asked what the jokes were about. The brother asked what strength was. Orpheus was puzzled. Verd said nothing, and for him to just keep training them. The younger brother shouted that he had said the same thing, that he was not a trainer, just a friend. Verd interjected about friends. Looking at Cross, he asked if this was some kind of joke. The one said he wasn't joking, that he was here to help her because she was his friend. Sufi looked at him. The goblin told Cross that they too were ready and would start at his command whenever he wished. The hero told them to advance. Verd told them not to move. He put his sword to Sufi's chest. He told them to get the hell out of here or his friend's core would be cut in half. Slimes was worried about the girl. Wolf said that's what everyone is saying about Cross here, that he smells. He'll be a good opponent, and if he doesn't keep interfering, he'll end up just like them. The hero at this time had already started using move. He quickly picked up Sufi in his arms and ran thanks to his 5th level of enhanced agility. Verd didn't have time to realize what had happened. He was perplexed. The hero shouted to the troops to slow them down and ordered the goblins to defend the slime tribe first. The wolf asked him what he had done. The hero replied that he was just using skills, and by the way, he didn't swallow the magic stone like them. The one looked at his stone in surprise. Cross asked Sufi how she was. The girl asked if he could put her not on the ground. He asked for forgiveness. He asked if she was okay and where the blade had gone. She said she was fine. The girl said she owed him again. Cross asked why she shouldn't let them deal with it for now. She lowered her gaze. She said she had already succumbed once to his violence and could no longer interfere as chief. The hero looked at her in surprise. Sufi cried. She asked him to help their village. At this time, one of the goblins was near the injured slime. He asked how the other one was and said that he was about to apply a potion. The werewolf and the wolf in the battle accused each other of betrayal. The wolves wondered how things had turned out this way. Verd was angry. He turned to Cross and offered to duel with him. He was surprised. He said that if he won, he would take this village in his, and if Cross won, he could do whatever he wanted with them, and asked if that wasn't a worthy condition. The hero replied that of course he did not mind, but he was not the wolf to fight. Orpheus appeared behind Verd's back. The wolf asked if it was his younger brother who was too weak to fight fair. He said he thought now was a great moment to end his dishonorable life, that he should be grateful for the kindness he had shown him. Orpheus replied that he was the one living in disgrace, and he could not allow someone who further disgraced their clan to live. The one laughed and said that the clan is a clan. He said that even if he lost the duel, the conditions would not change and asked if the man was sure. Cross said that he was okay with it. Sufi was shocked. She said that she thought he would fight him. The hero replied that he didn't say it would be him after all. She screamed that the future of her tribe was at stake, and if this wolf lost, they were finished. Cross asked her to calm down. He said everything would be all right. Shouted to stop the fight that it was time for the duel and we should light the fires. The hero said that Orpheus would win. The brothers stood opposite each other. Orpheus shouted forward and ran. He thought that a half-hearted attack wouldn't hurt him, especially because of the magic stones. He had an idea. He struck with a shout, using the fire sword style. Verd was puzzled. He thought it was fast. Still, he had time to dodge. He said he was watching. His little brother had learned how to fight, and it would be a bit of fun. Orpheus shouted that Cross had taught him, and today he was here to fight him. They clashed swords. Verd said it hurt him to see his brother trying to show himself more skillful than he really was. The wolves shouted forward to him that all forces were upon him, and he would be finished. The one asked them to shut up. Orpheus shouted to his brother that he would not allow him to mock his father and Cross anymore, that he swore on his name his reign would come to an end. He managed to knock Verd's weapon out of his hands. The werewolves cheered him on. Verd was feared for by his wolves. Orpheus said it was over. Verd laughed and said it was clear. He turned to his brother and asked to be allowed to say something. Orpheus did not understand what the matter was. The wolf said his name was Verd. The younger brother did not understand what the matter was. The next second, Verd struck his brother's neck. He was confused. He realized that he could not see his movements. At this time in the village, Livia was sitting with Rufuna and Goblina. One of the goblins told her if she rested a bit and let them take care of them. She thanked her for her concern and said that they were fine. She said that Mr. Cross was fighting right now and she wanted to be there for them, albeit mentally. She thought about how of course she was acting like his wife. As they were leaving, Cross talked about who would stay on guard. He told Orpheus that he would make a great fighter. Livia mentally wished them both a happy journey. Orpheus rolled over. He spat blood. He managed to fend off his brother's next attack with his knife, he screamed. Verd marveled at this. Looking up, Orpheus didn't understand how. His brother had struck very hard. He laughed as the werewolf bent on the ground. He said that it was an unusual enhancement, and she wasn't just because of the magic stone. Verd said that was right, for he too had a magical name. Orpheus was surprised. Verd thought about the wolf also having a magical name. Thoughts said how good it was, as if he had been reborn. He said Orpheus felt the same way when that man gave him the name and asked if it was. The one was angry. Verd said that now with the magic stone, the name, and his talents, he was offering to see how long Orpheus could last.